Hey, good day, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Pirkei Avos, the Ethics of the Fathers, live from Israel with Rabbi Chaim Coffman. I want to apologize, first of all. It was my bad. I'm the one that's running late here. We are a few minutes late, which isn't the norm, but I got called in for additional hours last night and am a little pooch. So I have to apologize to the rabbi, but I am so grateful that he does take the time out of his very busy schedule to share with us these lessons, and it's a joy. So let's just tune in and see how the rabbi is doing. Shalom, Rabbi. You are live on the air. We're going to turn the class over to you. Thank you so much for your patience with me, and please, I look forward to hearing what you have to share today.
Always a pleasure. And I always say, when I'm busy doing classes, it's less time I can help in the house. So it's also a little bit beneficial running a little bit ragged around here, getting things ready for Passover, but we are, making progress, so to speak. So, we got to get ready before the end of next week, but hopefully things will work itself out, and we'll be ready, midweek, turn over, start cooking, all the fun stuff. So we're in chapter 2, Mishna 9. Part 3. Now this is gonna see how far we get over here. See if we actually finish part 3, even though we got extra time. Seemingly, we got extra time tonight. So again, what does the Mishna say? And we've been hitting this, as you would say, as Dan the man would say, he's hitting it pretty hard. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai received the tradition from Hillel and Shammai, and what did he say? Remember, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was the youngest of the students of Hillel and Shammai. So, Rabbi Yochanan, famous being, around during the time of the Second Temple and, etc. So, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, what did he say? He said, if you studied a lot of Torah, don't take credit for yourself. Because that's what you're created to do. Right? So we've hit it in a number of different ways. That basically, you probably didn't think we'd get more than one part over here, because it seems pretty obvious that, we said, as we spoke last week, the Torah is as wide as the earth. Sorry, as long as the earth, as wide as the sea. So we only do as the Avos says in duties of the heart. We only do or keep or learn, let's say a quarter, a tenth of what we're really supposed to do, right? And all our actions, person can say, well, we're not going to measure up anyway, why bother? But the point is, we only scratch the surface in general. So why is the person going to be haughty over here? You learned a lot of Torah. The Torah is as wide, as wide as the ocean, as long as the earth. If we understand that, where can a person be conceited? Why in the world would a person be conceited? Because, first of all, you're barely scratching the surface. Second of all, why are you feeling so great? That's what you're created to do. Right? So says Mori Rebbe, Arav Agon or Moshe Stor Moshe, this should be well. And he brings down his commentary in Pirkei Avos. And he says like this. He says, God gives everyone the ability to reach potential. Now, we could spend the next 2.5 hours just speaking about potential. We don't know what our potential is. Everybody here, everyone who's listening, who's come out of paganism, who's come out of Christianity or whatever, probably never imagined where they are right now, or where they've been, right? Where they've been and where they are. Now, why do I say that? Because we get lulled into sleep. How do we get lulled into sleep? We get lulled into sleep very simply because what happens is we start believing what other people say about us. And we rest on our laurels. Now, I can make a sports analogy. CFL! Now, I can make a sports analogy. and say that, sometimes, probably many times, athletes may not train as hard because they have certain talents. But even unless it's a contract year, right? But if they have certain talents, they sort of rely on their talents. Now, people are gonna hammer me and say, "What are you talking about? They work out, they're in good shape, they're always working on their craft." Okay, that's probably true. That 100%, is probably true. But athletes, like anybody else, can get in bad habits.
That's right.
They can get into bad habits. They can get lazy. They can cut corners, so to speak. So what will happen? A person gets drafted. Again, we'll keep this sports analogy. A person gets drafted the first round, let's say. Top draft pick, right? Played great in college, scholastic, all this, maybe won a championship or two, or who knows what. Did very well in college, comes to the pros, right? It's a different beast. How many people have come to the pros, high draft pick, and made nothing of themselves? They didn't do anything, right? Countless people. Now, the difference between, the minor leagues and the pros, or college and the pros, is like night and day. Some people thrive in that. Other people, maybe it takes them time, whatever. But at the end of the day, some people aren't going to make it. All right. Some people are not going to make it even, let's say they went, how many number one picks, let's say in the NBA draft, were going to be superstars? Not everybody. Certainly not everybody. Right. And a lot of them were bust.
Canadian, Rabbi, I think more hockey. And I think, if you look back, like somebody like Alex Ovechkin, who is, still chasing down the goal scoring leadership in his 18th season. And he was a first draft pick. 18 years later, he's still chasing down, top goals in the league. 18 years later, I mean, that's dedication and commitment and capability.
No, that's true. Well, take somebody, let's say, you brought up hockey is a good example. You take hockey or take baseball. A number one draft pick from the college draft ain't going to do anything. They really shouldn't really do that much coming into the pros. Football, someone can make an impact straight away. Basketball, same thing. I'm not saying it can't happen in hockey, right? Let's say, or baseball, but usually it doesn't. They have to start in double A. Let's say in baseball, then they get to, they get to single A, they get to double A, they get to triple A, let's say, and then eventually get to the pros. But how many people made it to the pros after being in the minor leagues for years? For years. Right now, we're going to jump out a little bit from this, from this example. But my Rebbe here says everyone's got the potential. Everyone's got the ability to reach potential. Now, what's the $1.5 million? See where, the dollar got a little bit stronger, so we'll make it $1.5 million. What's the $1.5 million question? How do I know what my potential is? Nobody knows what their potential is. Nobody. Potential is limitless. Why? Because the soul is insatiable. So therefore, even though we said before, a person can be learning for many years and barely scratching the surface. Because the Torah is as wide as the sea, as long as the earth. So therefore, I still have to put my best effort in. But when it comes to reaching potential, nobody knows what their potential is. So if nobody knows what their potential is, how can you rest on your laurels? You can't rest on your laurels. One aspect of what hell is that when a person dies, they're going to see two movies, right? And everybody says this, whoever had an out-of-body experience, Jew or non-Jew. What was the first thing? They were clinically dead. They saw their soul hover above the body. They saw their life flash before them. Everything they've done in their life very quickly. Right? Now, after death, they now understand, or let's say when they're clinically dead, they understand what reality is, what absolute truth is. So anything they've done wrong, they feel bad because they know what absolute truth is. Now, they can't say, I didn't have my hand in the cookie jar. They're going to have to explain why their hand was there, just like we're recording here and on the Roku network, right? We'll put on later, right? So even though that's the case and we're recording, you can't say he didn't say it. Can't say he didn't do it. He did it. How can he justify it? He can't justify it. He can't say he didn't do it. God knows what he did. God knows what his thoughts were. So part of an aspect of what hell is now seeing the second movie. What's the second movie? The second movie is what your potential was. And all the trials and all the tribulations you went through, why it happens, and what you should have done, how you should have reacted, where your life could have gone. What you should have done. So isn't it true? Someone will say, who's going to reach their potential? Who's going to reach their final potential? Did everything they should have, check off this, check off that, check off the other thing? Nobody. Right? Seemingly nobody's going to reach that level of potential. Maybe. Maybe that's the case, but imagine, God forbids, somebody intermarried. A Jew intermarried. Now, Jews, as we hold, are two halves. When a person gets married, both souls are half a soul. So when you join together, when a husband and wife, that's normally how it works. Maybe not today. But when a husband and wife, a guy and a girl get married, they're two halves of a soul. So two halves come together. Now imagine, I mentioned this before, but people say, oh, intermarriage. Like, oh, it's no big deal. So who cares if someone intermarried? Now let's imagine there's a Bosco, there's a heavenly voice that goes out, this person's supposed to marry that person. This field's supposed to belong to this field, to this person, or whatever, right? So now let's go back. So this person's supposed to marry this person. Very good. Now, what happens if they don't? What happens in this case? A Jew marries a non-Jew. They're two half souls. If they are two half souls, they marry the wrong person. Now, the kids they were supposed to have are not going to come out if they were supposed to have kids. So now God has to orchestrate, go to plan B. Okay, this person didn't marry this person. They're half a soul. Where's the other half soul go? Where does this half soul go? Who do they end up marrying out? That's only one person. Now, multiply that by 60, 70% into marriage rate. You need many supercomputers to keep track of where everyone is, right? So what would we call that in the vernacular? The Matrix. That's what the Matrix is. Imagine God trying to figure out, which he can do anything. Imagine him trying to figure out, okay, this one blew it, that one blew it, the other one blew it. Look at all these tens of thousands of children that they were supposed to have. What happens now? Where does that go? I remember when I was engaged, I had this book called, a book by Rabbi Chaim called Made in Heaven. Right? It's about marriage. So I didn't get past the introduction. Why? Because Rabbi Chaim says, this decision, who you're going to marry, doesn't affect you. It affects your spouse. It affects your kids. It affects your grandkids. I'm like, who, me? That was it. Slam the book shut. That was too intense. Even for me, that was too intense. So imagine the decision we make, or let's say better, the decisions we make have unbelievable ramifications. Unbelievable ramifications. We're making this very graphic. A Jew marries an non-Jew. We could say a Jew marries the wrong person. Let's say the other half of their soul, they end up marrying the wrong person. Now, can that happen? It can happen. Or even if they marry the right person, could they get divorced? They could get divorced. Because we blew it. Not God, we blew it. Right? But regardless, whether person married the wrong person or married the right person, didn't go the way, that they wanted to, whatever the case is, there are ramifications. There are repercussions. And those repercussions can be with your kids, with your grandkids, future generations. Now, we made it very graphic. A Jew marrying a non-Jew. A Jew, you'd ask anybody affiliated with a synagogue today. And you ask them, according to the Bible, Is a Jew allowed to marry a non-Jew? Right? If they're affiliated with the synagogue, right, they're going to say yes, but. Now I always say there's no but. It's either A or B, yes or no. Right? We're not interested in Webster's 8th definition over here. Right? So they're going to say, yeah, it's forbidden, but. Right? That's it. You ask anyone else not affiliated with the synagogue, they're going to say there's nothing wrong with it. What, we hate non-Jews over here? No, we just don't want them to marry Jews. Now, that being the case, that's an egregious mistake. An egregious mistake. Now, if it's an egregious mistake, the kids, if the woman's not Jewish, kids aren't Jewish. Obviously, this is not the person they're supposed to be with. Now, someone will tell me, what if the person converts? Okay, it's a different issue. But I'm saying, what if the person doesn't convert? Not interested in conversion. And a non-Jew doesn't have to convert. We mentioned this many times. Non-Jew has, they can still eat shrimp. They can have a great time. They don't have to convert. There's no reason for them to convert. If they want to show they're the real deal, okay, but they don't have to. There's no obligation. It's a Jew's fault over here. Now, that being the case, what happens? What happens over here to the other side, to the other half of that soul? What happens to all the kids they're supposed to have? Now, obviously, that other half of the soul is going to marry someone else. God has to go to plan B, plan C, whatever it is, right? So now God has to orchestrate who that person, is going to end up marrying and whatever, and this is the matrix. Now, again, this is only one case. This is only one case where it gets messed up exponentially. Multiply that 70 times. 70 times, you need 1 billion supercomputers, right? How many computers did you tell me in the, what was that movie, not the End of the World? What was
Pirates
it
of
called?
the Caribbean,
Pirates
at
of the
World's
Caribbean.
End, yeah.
Right, Pirates of the Caribbean. How many supercomputers do they need to make that, whatever called, that spiral you told me about?
Yeah, for the scene at the end, or at the end of the world in the movie, it was, I think, part 3 in the series. Near the end of the film, you've got these two ships that are stuck in a vortex going down, trying to get pulled in, but they're trying to fight each other and not get offset and sucked in at the same time, and they're shooting away at each other. Anyways, to film that scene in CGI, computer-generated graphics, it took 37 computers, high-end computers. It took 37 computers, 39 hours to render 1 second of that movie. And so most people don't realize, but it's a question of the computer had to calculate the froth on each tip of each wave and its motion as these things were going around there, and the foam of the it was just a really, really high-end CG frame. But a lot of people don't realize this, and this is why when you watch, say, a Disney movie or a Marvel Comics movie, if you look at the end, the credits for the CGI team are like hundreds of people, and if you're just a render farm, you're not getting a name and a credit. You've got to actually be doing work for it. So, yeah, it's just crazy amount of calculations.
So imagine this one, this one spiral, this one vortex. That's what, 37, 39?
37 super high-end computers, 39 hours to calculate 1 second.
So now imagine, this is what God has to do.
Yeah.
This is what, in other words, you're taking 2 half souls, and they're not doing what they should do. So if they're not doing what they should do, and it doesn't get orchestrated that way, they end up marrying, quote unquote, the wrong person. So now God has to figure out, okay, what happened to this other soul? Where does it go? What kids are they going to have? All these different things. That's the matrix, right? That is extremely complex. Extremely complex. So now, based on that, there's just one event. That's just one event. So a person, as my Rebbe here says, get back to the original thing here, and that is everyone has the ability to reach potential. But you're going to say, I don't know what my potential is. And let's say a person has a dormant character trait that God wants to draw out, maybe with a hypodermic needle, but God wants to draw out in order that you relish in this character trait, so to speak, in order to give that over to others. Now, if a person's not naturally doesn't have this character trait, let's say, and according to natural means, in general, it's never going to come out. So what does God do? God orchestrates it in a way where he pulls it out and maybe something that is, superhuman, against nature. There are stories of people go through all kinds of things where, according to nature, they never could have been able to do it. Right? There are examples of women. A kid got caught underneath a car, let's say. The kid's about to be, made into dirt. And somehow she finds the strength to lift up the car and the kid gets out. Right? How does a woman do that? Unless she's a man dressed up as a woman and on all these other steroids or whatever. But how does a woman in general do that? It's above nature. Now, there are stories of such things. It's adrenaline, it's whatever you want to call it. But according to nature, most women ain't lifting up a pickup truck. That's just not going to happen according to nature. So what happens? What happened over here? God orchestrated a certain way. Okay, we're talking about something physical here. That God orchestrated in a certain way for this person to be able to do that. Now let's be a little more esoteric. Let's say a person has certain character trait. And that character trait is deep inside. And God says, how am I going to get this out? How am I going to get this person, let's say, to give over strength to others because they went through such a difficult time, whatever it is, how is God going to orchestrate that if everything's going easy for them? And they have money and everything's good. What does God do? You know what? God says, I'm going to make something, unnatural over here. Person's going to lose the money. They're going to be thrown around the world. All these different things are going to happen. But after the fact, when the dust settles, the person's going to be strong as fire, going to have proper emunah and bitachon, proper faith and belief in God, and they're going to be able to give that over to everyone else. Now, up until that point, the person doesn't have that ability. Why don't they have that? They might have knowledge, but let's say they don't have that ability, right? So what does God do? So God has to orchestrate a way for that information to come out. For that thing to come out. Now, it can look according to nature. Oh, this happened, the other thing happened, whatever, and one thing led to another. Could be. Or there could be cases where a person goes through something that according to nature never should have happened. People can be, as we always say, Monday morning quarterback. Oh, a person should have done this, should have done that, should have done the other thing. Forget it. Didn't happen. But according to nature, should this have ever happened? No. It's not according to nature. What happened to the Jews in Egypt? They came out. Was that according to nature? No. God took them out miraculously. Because according to nature, 9 times out of 9, 10 out of 10, 20 out of 20, they never get out. We mentioned this before also. Because Moshe Rabbeinu looks into heaven, and what does he see? He sees an angel of God, an angel of the Jewish people, and an angel of the Egyptians. Each nation has their own guardian angel, pleading their case in front of God, intertwined like a double helix. They're intertwined like a DNA molecule. Moshe Rabbeinu looks up and he says, God, what do you want from me? You want me to go there? They're never coming out. According to nature, you know how to read the stars. According to nature,
I heard there's a
what
side
does God
talk.
say? He says, Mo! He says, Mo, what do you want? What are you worried about? I created the earth. I can stop time. I can do things above nature. So that's potentially one reason the Jews come out of Egypt miraculously. Now, some have a theory that everything happened because Saturn was out of orbit. So I got a bridge in the prairies I can sell you pretty cheap. You want to believe that? Takes God totally out of the picture. Right? But let's not digress here. The point is, this is above nature. This is something that if you plug into 37 supercomputers, they never get out. Oh, we're root for the underdog. There is no underdog. It's never going to happen. Ever! As we would say in Boston. Never going to happen. If it's never going to happen, right, Moshe Rabbeinu says, what's going on? God says, going to take you out against nature. Going to take you out against nature. So there are things within inside of us. Now, I'm sure many people can relate. because they've gone through certain things, maybe even traumatic things, and it makes them who they are today. Now, some people may be broken by them, potentially, right? It's not what God wants, right? But it could be a person may go through certain things, and they didn't ask for that, but it makes them who they are, right? It develops who they are. So therefore, when it comes to potential, and most, if you were to ask me, use myself in this example. If you were to ask me 10 years, now let's see, you were to ask me 20 years ago, would I have left the land of Israel, been in South America, been in America, come back to Israel, and would I be doing what I'm doing today? No. Right? God says, wow, how am I going to get him to leave? Well, I'll make his life a misery. Take away all his money. So he's got no choice. Feels like he's got to go. Went to South America, disaster. Went to America, I won't say it was much better. Right? I'm not going to say it's so much better. Right? 2008, everything changed. The whole mortgage crisis, everything else. But around that time before, I got involved in, giving some classes to non-Jews. Didn't become what it is today. Right? Certainly not. It developed, and all that. But if a person would ask, would you see yourself doing this? I said, no. The only Jews I really had so much contact with were people in my own family. Right? But otherwise, non-Jews want to convert. It's not my field necessarily. But in the end, things worked themselves out the way they did. That's also part of the potential here. Why? Because, you could have been working with Jews, doing this, doing that, doing other things I wanted to do, which, haven't materialized yet, but hopefully God's help, that is going to be the case. But even so, I never would have dreamed about this in a million years. Certainly not. So when it comes to reaching potential, we don't know. Nobody knows. Nobody knows what their potential is. Not only don't we know, but how can someone rest on their laurels and say, wow, I learned this, I'm good, or I'm conceited, God forbid, because, I might have learned a lot of Torah or whatever, but that's what you're created to do. But even if that's what you're created to do, what did we say before? Torah is as long as the earth, is as wide as the ocean, right? If that's true, how can a person rest on their laurels? Seemingly that's an impossibility. And if we don't know what our potential is, would a person say, well, God will accept me as I am, even if I'm mediocre? Who says God's happy with mediocrity? If you have greater potential. And I've heard this. Someone told me, I'm good. I don't need more. I don't need to grow spiritually. That means you're dead spiritually. That means I've spoken before about doing things by rote. When we do things by rote, that's akin to spiritual death. So even a person doesn't know and they don't understand, or they think they understand, and they say, well, I'm good. I'm happy where I am. That's the kiss of death. Why is that the kiss of death? It's the kiss of death because we don't maximize anything of what we're supposed to do. There's very little that we maximize. But we have to try. We have to put our best foot forward. See, some people are going to say, the rabbi said, we're never going to reach our potential. We're never going to learn that much. We're learning what we're supposed to and this and that. So why bother? So we're going to get punished. We're going to get punished anyway. I might as well enjoy life. Life is short. King David said 70 years. Or if you have strength, 80 years. That's it. That's how long. Anything over 80 years is a blessing over here. But we don't know. People waste time. I don't have to bring this up. Everybody knows. Right? I heard Rabbi Chaim Coffman should be well. Spoke number of months ago. And I heard him speak about smartphones and how much time people spend on them, not doing something practical. right? We went through the stats, 4 hours a day. Multiply that, let's say they're doing it 7 days a week. Probably in the weekend it's more. But let's say 7 days a week, that's 28 hours. That's 1 day plus 4 hours if you can't do the math, right? Multiply that by 4, that's 96 hours a month. That's 4 days out of the month. 96 hours, almost 100 hours, multiplied by 12. Multiplied by 1,200 hours. Multiplied by 24, a scary statistic, right? 50 days? 50 days, a month and a half. A month and a half of a person's life wasted because they're attached to a screen. That is an extremely scary statistic. If you tell me those 4 hours, people are doing things practically fine. That's not what the stats show. But let's say, okay, then I have an argument. Right, then I have much less of an argument. But if that's really the case, and I probably think it's more, I would think it's more. But, people just, if they're working, they don't have as much time. But in general, 4 hours a day, that means you've killed a month and a half a year. Over 40 years, 50 years, a month and a half, you're talking what, a couple of years altogether? Get on. You say, what's the big deal? Person lived till they're 75, right? It's a big deal. So 2 years out of their life, 2 full years. 2 full years of wasted time. Years, not days, not seconds, not hours. Years. Now, nobody knows what their potential is, right? We're going to keep coming back to this. We don't know what our potential is. So how in the world can a person waste time? Take an ant. An ant's a good example. How long does an ant live for? 6 months? An ant lives for 6 months. Anytime you've ever seen ants, what are they doing? They're running. They're running back and forth, getting this, getting that, putting into their, into their hole. But they're only going to live for 6 months. They don't waste time. We waste a heck of a lot of time. One of the things that's going to get asked after 120 years is why we didn't become who we're supposed to be, right? Not why didn't you become the next Rabbi Kiva Eger? Why did you become like Moshe Rabbeinu? If our source of our soul was that and we didn't reach it, it's one thing. If our, the source of our soul is, you could have done this, you could have done that, you could have done the other thing. Why didn't you do it? Right? So what can a person say? Even though God's going to reject it. You didn't give me the brains. You didn't give me the brains to do that. Famous medrash with the fisherman. God says, did you learn Torah? First thing we're going to be asked. Did we learn Torah? Were we honest in business? Did you learn Torah? He says, you didn't give me brains to learn Torah. God says, really? What'd you do for a living? He says, I was a used car salesman. No. He was a fisherman. He was a fisherman. He says, oh, great. So how did you make a living, with fish? He said, I made these intricate nets, and I went out early in the morning, I did this, I did that, I trapped all these fish, Diana, and that was, that's how I made a living. God says, I bet the same God who gave you brains to trap fish probably gave you brains in order to what? In order to learn Torah. Imagine that embarrassment. Now, we could say we got distracted. Come on, you learn Derech Hashem, right? You get distracted. You have to be at the low, at a certain level to have a portion of the world to come. But what happens? You can say, I got distracted. And God says, who put the distractions there? Man did. I didn't want you to do that, but okay, you did it. You got caught up in this world. But don't you know the Gemara in Kedushin? The Gemara in Kedushin says, God created the evil inclination. But he also created a antidote. What's the antidote? What's the antidote is Torah. But you're going to say, but I got distracted. God says, I don't care, don't get distracted. This is what I want you to do. We have better days, we have worse days. We have to be consistent. Being consistent is not easy. That's why if a person's learning during the day, whenever a person learns, it should be consistent. They should learn at the same time, every day. Right? They should definitely learn every day at the same time. Why? The reason is because if you learn every day, you have fixed time to learn. It's not haphazard. It's not like today's at 5, yet tomorrow's at 3, Next day is at 4. Should be consistent. Because if it's consistent, then what happens? So then you get into a group. You're learning however much time during the same time every day. Right? And for a person, that has to be Arego Yavu. It has to be like something you'd be willing to give up your life for. In other words, unless it's like a fire in your house, God forbid, or an absolute emergency, during that amount of time, or during that fixed time, that's when you're learning. Whatever that fixed time is, doesn't matter what's going on around you. You have to have certain fixed time, because if you don't, it's haphazard. You can do it one time earlier, one time later, maybe one time you won't do it, right? So it has to be consistent. So the whole purpose of what we're doing here, right? The whole purpose is what? Is to draw close to God. That's the purpose. So anything that takes me away from that purpose is bad. If it's something where, okay, I did a chesed for somebody, an act of loving kindness, I have someone else something else, fine. But if a person's obligated, we're going to get to this Mishna when I'm probably about 102, and that is that if a person's learning, two people learning, and they say, one person says, oh, look, what a beautiful tree. What a beautiful sunset. What a beautiful view of the Grand Canyon. What does the Mishna over there say in Pirkei Avos? In the Ethics of Our Fathers, it says you're liable for death penalty. But it doesn't say you're not learning. It doesn't say you're wasting time when you're learning. Bittul Torah, you're not saying that. You're saying the Grand Canyon is beautiful. It's one of God's creations. One of God's unbelievable creations. Why liable for death penalty? Because when you're learning with someone else, you're not looking at the stars. You're not looking at what's around you. What's the focus? What I'm learning. So here you're not saying anything forbidden. You're not speaking Lashon Hara. You're not wasting time when I could have learned. That's worse. That's a lot worse. But let's say you said, what a beautiful sunset. What a beautiful this, what a beautiful that. That's not the time to do it. Because you're sitting and learning. Your focus is what I'm learning. Not on God's creation. Right? We're not interested at this point at God's creation. Right? Totally not interested in God's creation. Right? So the bottom line is at this point, God's going to say what? What are you doing? He's like, why are you praising my creation? It's not the time. You want to praise my creation? That's by prayer. That's what you say in the morning. Right? Or that's what you say at night. Or whatever the case is. Not while you're learning. We're going to speak about this. Probably multiple episodes. Right? We're going to speak about this. But that's hard to understand. Because here you are praising God's creation. There's a time for everything. When you're learning, it's a time to learn. Not a time to waste time. It's not a time to think about the Grand Canyon. Or politics. Or whatever's going on. It's my time to learn. It's my time to focus. Now you're going to say, well, what if you have ADHD? Or what if you have some, okay. So you got to learn how, we all have to learn how to focus. There's an evil inclination, the Vilna Gaon says, even when you're learning in the study hall. You're going to say, what's the evil inclination? Evil inclination could be either you might speak about things you shouldn't speak about. You get deterred, deterred one way or another by, some other topic that comes up has nothing to do with what you're doing. Or it could be there's an act of loving kindness that comes right in front of you and say, I'm the only one who can do it. And then you shut your Gemara, you shut your book, and you go do it. Right? But who says I'm the only one to do it? Right? If you're not the only one to do it, you're in trouble. The evil inclination can work many ways. Right? Not just to do something totally forbidden. Could be even to do a mitzvah at the wrong time. When you really should be focused. There's a story. We mentioned this way back when we said the Torah. So we said the world stands on three things. Right? First Mishna way back. More than 100 episodes. Right? That it says that the Torah stands on three things. Torah, avodah, gimel, chasadim. Torah, we understand, avodah, serving God, prayer, or sacrifices, and chesed, acts of loving kindness. Let's go back to Torah. Tell a famous story. Famous story brought down before, but still a good story. And that's with Rabbi Chaim Coffman, one of the Torah giants of the last generation. And he was a businessman, happened to be, whatever, Torah giant as well. But he learned in the morning till 2 o'clock. He told his wife, whatever happens, I can't be disturbed till 2 o'clock. That's my sacred time to learn. So one day, two people come in, they want to make a deal. They want to make a deal with him, and his wife said he can't be disturbed. So the two people say, come on, you're not going to have to do very much work, and he's going to make tens of thousands of rubles here. He's going to make a ton of money, in a short amount of time. And she says, I'm sorry, I can't disturb him. And they try and convince her and say, listen, he surely would have agreed to such a thing. He says, I can't disturb him. And they leave. So, 2 o'clock, Rabbi Margolius comes out of his room, and his wife tells him the story. And he starts dancing. And he starts singing. And his wife's like, I don't understand. Could have made so much money. Could have married off our kids. This, that. He said, imagine, Rabbi Margolius said, how much God thinks my Torah is worth. He thinks my Torah is worth tens of thousands of rubles. Not that he missed out. Because God can give money anyway. In other ways. Not that he missed out. But he said that's how much God thinks my Torah learning is worth. Now, other people would say, fool, should have made the deal. Should have made the deal. Could have married off all your kids. Yeah, that's not what Torah is about. When a person has a fixed amount of time to learn whatever it is, we mentioned it's Hareg al Yavor. It's something like you'd have to give up your life for rather than transgress over here. Meaning, not transgress, right? I'm just throwing that term out there. Right? But the idea is it's something that's so sacred, nothing's going to change it. In other words, unless, God forbid, there's an emergency, there's a fire in the house, something, okay? That's different. Right? But we can't think, oh, look, it's going to be, you're going to take off time for this, you take off time for that. We mentioned if you do it different hours during the week, one day it's at 4, one day it's at 3, next day it's at 5. It's not consistent. The most important thing over here is consistency when it comes to potential. Now, somebody, I use myself as an example also, right? So when I was becoming religious, someone said, oh, but you do this, but you don't do that. And you compromise on this, but you don't do that. Now, my first reaction is, what do you know about Torah? That's my first reaction. Like, what in the world do you know? What do you know about Torah? What do you know about anything? That's not the answer. That's not the reaction we should have. What should the answer be? The answer should be, you're right. This is where I should be. But I'm not there yet. I'm a work in progress. Now, what's the person going to answer to that? They'll respect that. Because they'll say, right, I'm not perfect. 100% I'm not perfect. Right? But that's the goal. That's where I want to be. So if a person is working consistently and day in and day out, they may have ups and downs. But day in and day out, they're trying to be consistent doing what God wants. That's going to help them reach potential. Now, does that mean God's going to make it easy and throw everything at you? No. I remember after I left one place of learning, I wanted to go to another place of learning, and the philosophical outlook was very different. Right? What I was learning before was a religious Zionist outlook. This was an ultra-Orthodox outlook where I was. And, the rabbi there, wasn't so ecstatic taking someone, quote unquote, from the outside. And I basically said, I'm leaving that world. I have no interest, in being in that world. That's why I'm here. So I was pretty much said, okay, we'll see. We'll see what happens. So I was basically thrown to the wolves. I wasn't handed anything. And a lot of the guys there certainly were above me. No question. My reading skills weren't so great. My other skills were better, but, whatever, it worked itself out. Worked itself out. But you know what it is? People say, oh, these people, they don't do anything for the world. All they do is sit and learn all day, right? You want to try and, do that 8, 10, 12 hours a day, racking your brain, You're sitting there, you're throwing out ideas back and forth. It's not easy. Definitely not easy. Forget that people think, oh, you're not doing anything for the world. Let people try and do it. I mean, isn't it true? Isn't it true we only maximize maybe 3% of our brain? If that's the case, we want to maximize as much as we can. If that's possible. So therefore, there has to be consistency. So when we say over here that everyone's got the ability to reach potential, that doesn't mean, everything's going to go smooth. Doesn't mean that. What does God want to see? He wants to see self-sacrifice. He wants you to be consistent. He wants you to work hard. Doesn't mean you're never going to have an evil inclination. Doesn't mean that at all. So if everyone has the ability to reach potential, and we can go in that direction, how do we do it? How is it possible? So again, we mentioned nobody knows what their potential is. Nobody has any idea what their potential is. And at the end of the day, what do we have to do? We have to work hard towards that. That's what we have to do. Right? That's exactly what we have to do. And we have to take it step by step. Sometimes we'll hit valleys, we'll hit plateaus, we'll go up, we'll go down. But at the end of the day, life we have to work on. Living the way God wants, we have to work on. Evil inclination doesn't sleep. 24/7, he doesn't sleep. We have to be careful. That's why people say, oh, you're so insular and this and that. But, we want to try and reach whatever potential we have. And the outside world is going to do everything to stop that. That's what the evil inclination wants. You get caught up in this. What happened last week, the week before? What are people caught up in? March Madness, right? That's what they're caught up in. Now you got the beginning of baseball season, right? Now you got the end of basketball, hockey, playoffs. Everything. Everyone's like, thank God we got what to look forward to. It's all a waste of time. Mentioned this many times. All a waste of time. Who cares? Team wins, they lose, this, that. Doesn't really matter. But, a person can get so into it, it's addictive. It's addictive. Even if your team's not in it, you just like to watch. Right? So, if we don't know what our potential is, but we know the importance of learning, we know about the importance of drawing ourselves closer to God, then how can we rest for 1 second? We can't rest for 1 second. We have to keep moving, doing. So when I'm not learning, doesn't mean I'm not drawing myself close to God. I got other things, right? Got to make a living. Got to help out in the house. Got to clean for Passover. Plenty of things we have to do. That's part of Torah also. We do chesed for other people. Everything has its place, right? But what if a person has greater potential, right? The modern Orthodox world will say, come on, not everybody, but they'll say, come on, kid's 18, let him go to college. Let him go to university. Might have a real grueling schedule. 2 mornings, 2 afternoons a week. He says he's already learned Torah for so long. But what about his potential? What about his potential over here? So the Torah tells me 2 different places. Levites. How old were Levites when they started working in the temple? One verse says 25. Another verse says 30. So what is it? Is it 25 or 30? So Rashi says, what's a discrepancy? Discrepancy is you give somebody 5 years to see if they have potential in Torah or not. In other words, they learn around the clock. They do whatever they can do and see if it's going to go or not. And if it doesn't go, after 5 years, they should try a profession. Because they're never going to make it. There's a litmus test. Right? There's a litmus test over here. Right? So now, what would some of the modern Orthodox community say? Come on, he's 18. He's got to go, do something in the world. Maybe write a book on tax law. Right? He's got to do something important over here. But if he's 18, he's just learning, he's finally learning how to think the way the Torah wants and how to learn. Because they only start learning, let's say Mishna and Gemara at the age of 11. the age of 10, the age of 11. You're going to tell me in 7 years he's got enough tools to see what he can be? Got to give him time. Got to give him time to develop. Now again, the litmus test is they don't see success that way. Within those years, they won't see it. They'll study 10 years, 20 years, they won't see it. Right? In general. Depends how persistent a person is and whatever. It's dependent on a number of factors. Right? Without getting into it. But why do I mention all this? Because a person could use his ability and could use that potential for wrong things. Could use it, let's say in academia. Yeah, let's say a person got a great head for math. It could be an unbelievable person in academia. So that, so what would I say about that? So let someone else be a mathematician. If he's got the brains to be a mathematician, imagine what he could do in Torah. Now you're going to say, that doesn't always go. You're right. There are many reasons why maybe it won't go. But if a person has brain power, it can be used for the right thing. You say, well, don't we need mathematicians? Don't we need lawyers? Don't we need doctors? We do. That there's no question. Right? But certainly for a guy, what's the most important thing? Torah scholarship. That's how you measure how great people are, by what they know. Only by what they know in their midos, in their character traits. But a person could have an unbelievable brain, be quite bright, and use it for things that have nothing to do with Torah. Now, the question is, if they have that potential in Torah, and they don't, let's say they do learn, but they don't maximize that potential, they're also in trouble because they're wasting time over here. In other words, they're taking whatever Torah knowledge they have and they're resting on the laurels. And that's also about potential. Because God could say, I gave
Rabbi, isn't that a degree of theft? Wasting time?
I wouldn't say it's wasting time. The idea is that what should I be doing instead of wasting time? I should be learning if I have the ability to learn. Right? So I'd say, what I call it, stealing. Let's say not, I wouldn't necessarily call it stealing. You might say he's not using what God gave. He's not using his gifts that God gave him, in order to help him reach his potential, or in order for him to help others. Stealing could come under the category, let's say a person woke someone up when they were sleeping. That's stealing. You're stealing sleep. Not just talking about money, right? The easy one is, taking money that doesn't belong to you, right? Stealing can be also, stealing sleep. I wouldn't necessarily say over here it's about reaching potential, but let's imagine we told the story before. There's a famous story with the Netziv, or Naftali Tzvi of Berlin, right? An acronym, the Netziv, who was the head of the yeshiva of Volozhin after Rabbi Chaim of Volozhin, famous student of the Vilna Gaon. And he had a dream when he was younger, as a child. Hard to imagine as a child, but, he heard his parents saying, what's going to be with him. He never wants to learn. We have to give an apprentice. At least you should have a livelihood. So he goes to sleep. And he has a dream. And what's the dream? The dream is being judged in heaven. Now, it's hard to imagine as a child, but we're not going to ask a question on the dream. He has a dream, and the dream goes like this. He sees a scale, and he hears a batsko, he hears a heavenly voice, and it says, bring out all his mitzvahs. So, anytime a person does a mitzvah, if they do it stronger or weaker, they create angels, right? For every mitzvah we do. Every transgression also, right? They got these white angels, stronger, weaker. Loads and loads of white angels go on the scale. One side of the scale goes way down, right? Trainloads of these mitzvahs, and then they stop. So the Tzvi is feeling pretty good. And then he hears the batsko, he hears this heavenly voice. Okay, bring out all his transgressions. So now you got trainloads and trainloads of these black, destructive angels, some stronger, some weaker, depending on transgression that they did. Goes on the other side of the scale. Meanwhile, that side goes down, the other scale starts to come up. Now he's getting a little bit worried. And now the scale is going like this. The scale, is moving up and down, and the black angels are ready to destroy him. They're ready to rip him to shreds. So, he's still very nervous over here. And then he hears another baskel. There are no other angels come out. So he's still nervous, but he hears another heavenly voice. What does the heavenly voice say? Okay, bring out all the books he's supposed to write. Comes out this huge volume, the Emek HaDover, it's commentary on Chumash. They say, okay, bring out his commentary, bring out this, Merume Asada, his commentary on the Talmud. All these humongous books come out, and they're dancing their way towards the side of transgression. So the Netziv screams out, he's like, what are these books? What is this? What's going on? So here's a heavenly voice. And the heavenly voice says, well, according to what you're supposed to do. Now, there are a lot of questions on this dream we'll mention, but he says, according to what you're supposed to do, that's your potential. You're supposed to be this great rabbi who's going to write all these books. But since you're not going in that right direction, they go inside transgression. The scale breaks and he wakes up. That's his dream. Runs into his parents' room. Mom, Dad, bring me the teacher. Let's go. I'm ready to learn. And he became who he became. Now, there are a lot of questions on this story, right? He's younger. How can he be judged, if he's not of age? But here we're talking a person normally, where they're holding right now, doesn't affect what they're supposed to do in the future. Person is only judged, and this is a good thing about Rosh Hashanah, that a person's only judged, right? A person's only judged where they are holding. What does that mean, where they're holding? It means where they're holding right now. They're going to get judged. They're going to get judged where they're holding right now. Where do we learn it out from? We learn it out from none other than Yishmael. Because by Yishmael, Hagar turns away. She doesn't want to see him die, right? Starving, dying of thirst. And the angels are like, kill him. Let him die. Look at all his future progeny. The Muslims, look what they're going to do to the Jewish people. God says, is he guilty? He's not guilty. We can't kill him. But what does the Torah say? It says, Bashir Husham. That where it is now. Now, meaning right now. You judge a person where he's holding right now. Not about future potential. When he dies or she dies, then it'll be about future potential. Then it'll say, okay, let's see what you did. Let's see what you did in your life. Did you reach the potential or you didn't? That's a different issue. But a person in general is not going to get judged. Is not going to get judged for a future, until that time. Now, though, in one case where a person gets judged for what potentially is going to happen, that's by a wayward son. Now, the book of Deuteronomy says between the age of 12 and a half, if he steals, a quarter pound of meat or a little bit of wine, parents are going to take him out to the elders of the city. They're going to condemn him. They're going to kill him. They're going to condemn and kill based on what this kid is going to do in the future. Right? Now, what's the obvious question? The obvious question is, why don't we allow him to do tshuva? How do you know? How do you know he's not going to do tshuva? How do you know he's not going to repent over here? Doesn't make so much sense. The assumption is everyone has the ability to repent. So why don't we give him the ability to repent? So this is the only case we have where, since we know if he doesn't get his fix, he's going to steal. Right? He's going to steal from his parents. He's going to go down, he's going to spiral out of control. But it's the only case in the Torah you hit somebody according to what their future is. What they're going to do in the future. Because this is clear he's not going to repent. The only case we have that we nip it in the bud, we knock him out now because of future things he's going to do. We don't want to do future terrible things. But normally everything else we say, he's got the potential to repent. And if he's got the potential to repent, we're not going to kill him. We're going to give him an opportunity. We're going to give him time. How much time? It's God's decision. It's going to give him time. So again, over here, it comes to potential. It comes to what am I doing here? What can I do? What's possible to do over time? And we have no idea what that is, essentially. Nobody knows. Nobody knows where we're going to end up. Nobody knows, as King Solomon says in Proverbs, we don't know what's going to happen today. We certainly don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We don't know. So how in the world can a person say, I'm good? I'm happy being mediocre? What if that person has greater potential? So if God says the person doesn't have any greater potential, this is all they could reach, okay, then they reach their potential. But at the end of the day, if we don't know, and we are not sure, then how can we take anything for granted? Can't. An 18-year-old tells me many years ago, it says, Rabbi, come on, cut out the Muslim holding better than 95% of world Jewry. So I said, well, let's say I agree, which I don't necessarily agree, but let's say I would agree. What if God doesn't agree? What if God thinks you got greater potential? And if God thinks you got greater potential and you don't reach that potential, you're toast. So someone says, if I keep kashrus, I keep Shabbos, am I good? Then someone says, what if I hold by this certain rabbinic supervision of food? No, he's dead. Everyone's like, nah, he's gone. So what's going on over here? We don't know. Nobody knows. We have to serve God to the best of our ability. Day in and day out. That's what we have to do. There's no getting around it. Now, some days we'll do better. Some days not. Some days the evil inclination overcomes us. Hopefully not. We have to work hard. We have to work hard. But imagine, the bar gets lifted up much greater when we know what we're supposed to do. Right, the Korban Aaron, the Or Chaim HaKadosh, of blessed memory, one great commentaries more than 100 years ago, says in chapter 16, verse 1, the book of Leviticus, and he says, by the death of the sons of Aaron, Nadav and Avihu, the Korban Aaron says, why they died, two of the greatest people in the history of man. Why do they die? So many reasons. Torah gives, the rabbis give, potentially why this happens. But the Korban Aaron says when you're close to the king, and you have a very close connection to the king, then the stakes are much higher. Much, much higher. If you were the water boy, right? You were the, mail carrier, whatever. You think the king's going to care, you make a mistake. Depends how egregious the mistake is. Right? But you think the king's going to care? He's not going to care. Why would the king care? The king's not going to care at all. Oh, but you're close to the king. And now you go against what the king says. Oh, that's a different issue. That's a different issue. You got greater potential. So a friend of mine would say, okay, let's go the other way. Rather, someone be ignorant. If you're ignorant, king's not going to care. You're not going to care because you're doing minimal what you should do. But what if you have greater potential? Right? That's always my answer. If a person has greater potential and they end up being a water boy, they're in trouble. They're in serious trouble. Why? Because they wasted their potential. God says, why did I give you this potential in the first place? Because God obviously saw the person could reach high level. but the person got, carried away with other things, got bogged down with many other things. So that being the case, what do we see? Can't rest on your laurels over here. You can't say, well, God didn't give me the brains, because God's going to show you have the brains. You have the ability. You were lazy with a capital L. Totally lazy. I remember in high school, someone came in from it was in junior high. Junior high, someone came in and, was a new student, was in the top classes. And the person got involved with the wrong people and just spiraled downwards. Very big spiral downwards. Now, that person I'm sure he had greater potential. Right? But what happened? Got involved with the wrong people. This is in junior high. I'm not talking, later or whatever. Got involved in the wrong people, with the wrong people. Can start at any age, really. And spiraled out of control. Totally out of control. Now imagine this person had, X potential. And he got caught up with the wrong people. Now, is that his fault? Or whose fault is it? His evil inclination got the better of him. So he fell in with the wrong group. Now, is it possible to break that? Sure. Might have to work hard. It might be unpleasant. No question, but what's the bottom line here? He had much greater potential. Certainly had much greater potential. Wasted it. Now, you could ask the question, why God give it to him? Why did he give him all that, potential? Because obviously he wanted to see certain things. And the person didn't do what he was supposed to do. Is he going to say, we're all in the same boat? We're all in the exact same boat. How are we going to answer? And hopefully what our answer is going to be is that we were consistent day in and day out, working hard to reach our potential. Now, does that mean we're perfect? No. Does that mean we're not going to pay for certain things we've done? Of course we're going to pay. We're going to pay in this world than the next world, but okay, we're going to pay. There is a price. There is definitely a price we're going to pay. That being the case, don't we want to minimize it? We'd rather have it in this world, but we want to reach whatever that potential is. We want to work hard. We want to strive. It doesn't mean it's all going to go smooth. It doesn't mean a lot of things over here. But at the end of the day, I have to put my best foot forward, says the Avos of Avos. Right? It says in duties of heart, that's what you got to do. You got to work hard. You got to put your best foot forward. And if you don't, you're in trouble. Because everyone, as we said, my Rebbe here points out, you have the ability to reach potential. What's every person's potential? Depends on the person. Depends on the source of their soul. Depends what they're capable of. But the person's going to say, come on, this happened, the other thing happened. I got beaten down in life. That's a good excuse. We throw that out a lot. Now, it might be true. We're not denying that. Life throws all kinds of curveballs, right, our way. So 100%, we may say, well, I gave in a little bit here. I gave in a little bit there. And then it went like this and like this. But you open yourself up. Can't open ourselves up over here. Right? At the beginning of the laws of repentance, Rabbi brings down from the Vilna Gaon in Proverbs. The Rambam in the laws of repentance says, even if you do something by accident, you have to do vidui. You have to do confession. So, Rabbi says, makes sense if you did something on purpose. If you did something on purpose, you have to confess. You did the wrong thing, blah, blah, blah. Makes sense. What about by accident? Did something by accident. Person standing up against, the wall Friday nights, and there was a switch there. By mistake, turned on the switch on or off. The light went on or off on Shabbos. Did it by accident. Didn't have intention over here. Did it by accident. So he's still gonna bring a sacrifice. Right? But why does he have to confess? Why does he have to confess, the Rambam says? So Rabbi brings down, Vilna Gaon says in Proverbs, brings from King Solomon, he says like this, he says, a person will never ever transgress something by accident unless they did something on purpose. Right? Let that sink in. That means that a person will never make a mistake by accident if their body is not now open to sin. How can their body be open to sin? Because they've obviously done something on purpose. They've done something on purpose that goes against what God wants. Now that's a scary possibility, right? That is definitely a scary possibility. That there's no question. Because once a person opens themselves up to sin, a person can transgress even by accident. Which means they've done something on purpose. Doesn't matter why. It's irrelevant why. They've done something on purpose. Right? They've done something on purpose in order that, for whatever reason, but that opened their body up. That opened their mind up. And that allowed them to do something by accident. Now that should never happen. Right? Doing something by accident should never happen. Comes on the Vilna Gaon. And the Vilna Gaon says, yeah, why did it happen by accident? Because you must have done something on purpose. Once a person's done something on purpose, they open themselves up to all kinds of things. So you're going to say, come on, what have we said up until now? You're going to say, come on, this isn't fair. We're brought into this world against our will. We die against our will. The Mishna Pirkei Avos says when I'm going to be about 107, right? That, but you still have to live in this world, I would say. Put that in parentheses. You still have to live. So a lot of things we're not in control of. And even if we're not in control, God wants to see how we're going to react. What are we going to do? We could be put in really bad situations, either because God put us there, because of what our soul has to go through, has to do with the past life or whatever, or we can transgress Coffman's 614th commandment of don't be stupid. And you do something to yourself. Either way. Now the question is, what am I going to do? How am I going to get out of this? What's going to be over here? And the answer is not so simple. Because if we did it to ourselves, what are we going to answer? What are we going to say? Okay, we did something stupid over here, but there's a penalty. There's a penalty over here of what a person's going to pay. Each one according to why they did it, what their intention was. And it would be very easy for all of us to say, God, we'll make this like a deck of cards. God, you gave me a hand. Wasn't a good hand. You gave me a bunch of single cards. You gave me a 3. You gave me a 2. Gave me a 7. Where's my ace? Where's my king? Where's my joker? You didn't give me any of these. You gave me a bad hand. Now the question is, it's not bad. We view it as bad. So why did God give it to us? Don't know. But God puts the soul of each person, right, into a body that is going to help that soul reach its potential. For whatever reason. And it could be, it's only in his body. Let's say you have a child that's in a messed up body, right? It's mentally challenged. It's got a disease, whatever the case is. Not a punishment for the child. Not a punishment for the parents, per se. The soul has to come back and go through this messed up body in order to reach potential. How do I know it's not punishment? We've said many times, when does punishment come? At the age of 12 or 13 or up to the age of 20? So punishment cannot be when a child's born or up until that point. So there's something else going on. But even with all that, couldn't we make the claim? we can make the claim I've been dealt a bad hand. The Rabbi Chaim says, you're right, God created evil. Doesn't mean God is evil. There's no evil that comes from God, it comes from above. Problem is the way we look at it. And it might be bad, seemingly bad. I just read a bunch of stories earlier where things look really bad and they seem really bad, but in the end, they turn just the opposite. It's the way we view it. It's the way we see things. We can't see. We don't have, hindsight is 20/20. We mention many times. So we see something that's somewhat being bad, something seemingly being bad. The reality is not bad. It's the way it looks. Use myself as an example. We mentioned this many times. I had a 17-year odyssey, end up where I'm living now. The longest time I've ever lived in one place, 13 years. And I have 2 kids that married into 2 families living one building away from the next in the same place I live. The odds of that are pretty much about 0. 0. The odds of that that doesn't happen. But you went through a hard 17-year odyssey, and only part of it is only ended, a year ago, whatever. That part is sort of ended. But you're going to say, look, all the things you went through, this is why you're here now. And you had to be in this place in order to marry off 2 of your kids to great families. I would have said you're off your cotton picking head. I would have chosen that. And if God would have told me that 20 years ago, it's one thing. But you've been around the world back, suffer like a dog. No question, for whatever reason. No complaints over here. But this is the end result. This is the bottom line. Right? So a person can say, but look at the hand. Look at the hand you've been dealt. We can all make that claim. It's a very easy claim to make. My parents did this. My siblings did this. Now, could they have done terrible things? Yes. 100% they could have done terrible things. Are we in control of who anybody is in our family? No. We mentioned before. We'll get to this Mishna in Pirkei Avos when I'm like 107. You're born against your will, you die against your will. And in parentheses, you still have to live. We're not in control. We're not in control of who our parents are. Not in control of our siblings, socioeconomic situation, nothing. We're totally not in control. You're going to say, but look what I've been dealt with. And someone else is going to say the same thing. I've been dealt with this. And I got this. And someone else says something else. Everyone's got their own thing. No one has the same thing. Some people have problems with livelihood. Some people have problems with family. Some people have problems with sickness. Some people have things all together. God forbid. Are we in control of that? Child gets leukemia. Are we in control? We're not in control. We're not in control. Many, many things. So you can say, but this is what happened. Okay. So there are many people that could just check out and say, God, you can go to hell. God forbid. You can go to, this is what you did to me. You made my life a misery. You did this, that, and the other thing. I'm done. And there are people that will say that. Right? And I'm not saying they've had an easy time. But there's one thing that most people forget. What's the one thing most people forget? They forget the goodness that they have. They forget the goodness. Now, I'm not saying when a person's down and it's hard, and you're going to think, Coffman's law, right? 10 things you're thankful for, right? You have food. You have a roof above your head. Even if you don't own it, whatever. You got what to be thankful for. You don't have sickness. And if you do, and it's in remission, there are a million things to be thankful. I said 10. You're thankful you got hair. I don't even have hair. But I'm thankful for what's here, right? There are many things. But when you're down, you don't think about these things. You're going to say, Coffman, that's great. I'm going to take your list. I'm going to burn it. I'm going to burn this list because I'm down. When we get beaten down, it's hard to see. It's hard to see the bigger picture. Very, very hard. So people ask me, they say, come on. Didn't you have bad days? I had a lot of bad days. For many different things. at the same time, I had to get myself out of it and say, if I do this, I'm going to ruin a lot of people around me. And that's not, obviously, it's not healthy. Totally not healthy. And things had to be put in perspective and, whatever. Was it easy? No. But you know what? It defines who I am. It allows me to speak about things I never would have been able to speak about before. That's it. And family, don't we always say, blood is thicker than water? So what? Family can be an albatross. You know what an albatross is? It's just like a chain that I don't need. That's just aggravating. And here people put you down and make fun. And, Bali Tshuva, returning to Judaism, converts, they're all in the same boat. Parents either are going to support you or not support you. Right? Or family's going to be there for you or not there. A lot of times they're not there for you. So you're on your own. Right? So who's going to pick up the slack? The Jewish community is going to pick up the slack. People that you're friends with, they're going to be like your family. That's what I have. That's what I know a lot of people have. Right? In other words, friends are more like family than family. And that's what happens. I'm not saying it has to, but that in general. In general, that's what happens. So therefore, we have to be strong as fire, knowing that, okay, our family's never going to relate. And then we have to decide, should I have contact with them? I shouldn't have contact. How much contact? In general, most people are probably going to cut off contact at some point because it's toxic. It can be toxic. But someone can say, come on, I've been put down for so long. Okay. I've been made fun of and I said this, I said that. Fine. That doesn't give anyone an excuse over here. I'm not saying the person might not need therapy for such a thing. You get beaten down in life. Everybody has redeeming qualities. Everybody. We all have redeeming qualities. So if that's true, problem is we believe what other people say. Right? That story, well, not really a story, but what people say, there's a middle child syndrome. Right? So what happens? A parent should never, ever label a child. Ever. Never say, how come you're not like your brother? How come you're not like your sister? Oh, you're always bad. You're always this. What's the child going to do? Oh, you want to say I'm irresponsible? So I'll be irresponsible. You want to say I don't clean my room? I'll never clean my room. They're going to live up. They're going to live up to the garbage that's said to them. And don't think there aren't parents out there that do that. It's one of the olive bases in parenting. You never compare kids. Never. Never. You never say, how come you're not like your brother? That's going to bring animosity between siblings. You could ask the question, look what Jacob did. Favorite son, he gives the coat of many colors. Brothers become more jealous. So if Jacob, Yaakov, raised 12 righteous sons, what happened over here? So one of the commentaries says, you know what happened? Yaakov says, this child is exemplary. I'm not rubbing it in their face. I'm telling the other brothers, even though he's the youngest, or second youngest, right? They should look up to him. They should admire him. They should want to be like him. They were great in their own right. He wasn't, if he's going to show favoritism, there's the wrong way to do it. And, they want to have him killed, and there's a whole thing going on with the brothers. Not the topic for now. Right? But that would be the olive base in doing the wrong thing, showing favoritism. Favoritism destroys as well. And a lot of, family dynamics, you got to give me at least another 3 hours. And you'll never, we're not going to do this. But, family dynamics are extremely complicated. Extremely complicated. Because even if someone is exemplary and they're younger than other people in the family, who's going to listen to them? They're going to say, oh, you're going to tell me? I remember you used to do this. I remember you used to do that. Who's going to listen? No one's going to listen. Not going to show respect because obviously you're younger. Your older sibling could be 75. You could be, 70. They're still not going to listen to you. You're still the younger brother, younger sister, whatever. Right? So when it comes to family dynamics, Family dynamics can be there forever. In other words, a person can grow up in the family dynamics, however they manifest themselves, they remember when they're younger. People don't forget so easily. People remember, people can remember things, even if you said something. I'll give an example. I'm not going to say what was said. I made a comment to someone many years ago, many years ago. And I said, I feel like X. I didn't say I am X. I said I feel like X. And I've never been able to live that down. Ever. Never been able to live it down. They said, oh, you said like this. What's my answer always? When this hasn't come up in a long time. But what would my answer be? I didn't say that. I said I feel like X. So it's called selective hearing. Right? But I didn't, because they got hurt by what was said. But I didn't say, I shouldn't have said it, fine. But I didn't say it. I said I feel like X, not that I am X. So that can, something can strike a raw nerve. And 20 years later, you never live it down. I remember you did this. So people hold grudges. Torah says you're not allowed to hold grudges. But people hold grudges. And they'll say, oh, when you were younger, this happened. And they hold it inside. Well, you're giving someone power that never should have that kind of power. They never should be in your head. Right? So, I always say, you want to look at these people, they make comments and they say things. These people are absolutely insane. You have to look at them like they have a 25 IQ. Someone who's mentally challenged. I'm not going to say retarded because you get thrown off the Roku network. They're mentally challenged. Right? Now, someone mentally challenged, they bump into you. They push you down. They don't know what they're doing. They say something. They don't know what they're saying. I'm going to argue with somebody like that? What am I going to argue with? These people also, they might be more intelligent. PhD, pilot higher and deeper. Papa has dough, right? They, MBAs, all the way down. So they're just a little more intelligent, maybe. But if they have zero education in Torah, they're going to sit there and make fun and this and that. What am I going to take them seriously for? Why am I even going to, waste one precious second and think about what they say? I'll make fun of it. I'm good at that. I'll rip it to shreds, so to speak, but why would I give it a second thought? Because the person's going to say, come on, this is what you live for. This is what you do, and they just sit there and make fun. Okay, you're right. But that was the best advice I was ever given. These people, they shouldn't be in your head at all. These people are insane. So someone's got to say, but they cause a lot of damage. They destroyed self-esteem. Okay. That I'm not going to deny. Now, this might take heavy therapy, but a person has to realize we do have self-esteem. We are trying to do the right thing. Who cares what people say? Teachers got to be very careful. They put somebody down, they put a student down, or they embarrass them in public. Like, that kid is finished. Because we live in this cream puff generation. They're finished. Imagine I had a teacher tell me, I guess they were trying to motivate me, to be better in art. And they're like, how can you draw something like this? I was like 8 years old, 9 years old. You think I wanted to try after that? Someone's going to say, like, my dead grandmother could have, drawn better than that. Like, this is what you pass in. This is what you've done. All right, thank God I got over that. Didn't, I'm just thinking out loud. What damage did it do? I excelled in scholastics. I excelled on on the ball court. So I'm going to worry about someone who tells me, I may never have any artistic, talent. Okay. I don't have artistic talent. But someone could really put a lot of effort in. To me, I tried. I'm not going to say, I worked so hard. But someone could put a tremendous amount of effort in. And they get slammed. They're going to say, why should I bother trying? They're going to say, no, I'm really trying to motivate you. I'm really trying to motivate you over here. I want you to be better because you have greater potential. Now, that could motivate somebody. It could also destroy them. Right? Now, if we live in a cream puff generation, that can totally destroy a person. I understand. So someone's going to say, I was never the same person afterwards. Well, why'd you let them get in your head? So a person's older, and now they understand, and still they say, wow, this person said I never had talent. Well, I care what they say now. But it has an effect. When we're younger, it certainly has an effect. But, certain things, now again, psychologists may rip me to shreds here. That's okay. But, certain things we should be able to deflect. There are bad teachers out there. There's no question about it. Some people should never be teaching or have a position of authority. But regardless, they have the ability to destroy kids, destroy self-esteem. It's a huge problem today. And kids need to be built up. A great rabbi once told me that's, one of the single biggest problems. He told me this 20 years ago. More. One of the single biggest problems today is lack of self-esteem. So he said, you got to build them up, always compliment them, this, that. So he says, so my question was, okay, it's very good. But what about them being conceited, which we're going to get to now? What about them being conceited afterwards? He goes, no, I can deal with that also. He said, that's not the problem. Problem is lack of self-esteem. All someone needs to do is get broken down a little bit for something they did, and then they're never going to want to do it. Again, they're never going to want to do it. And they're not going to want to work hard at this thing, etc. Why? Because they just got beaten down. They just got demolished over here. Right? So, thank God I was good at other things. I didn't put all my eggs in one basket, certainly not in art. No offense to anyone who likes art or whatever. But at the end of the day, that wasn't my thing. Okay. But if I would have, been beaten down in other ways, and said, oh, you don't do this good. You don't do that good. You don't do the other thing. It's like you don't do anything good. Then I can understand a person having a serious issue in self-esteem. And that may take a long time to get over. And the only way a person may get over that, certainly with heavy therapy. But, if a person did have good things that they've done, and let's say they were good at scholastics or halfway decent or, whatever, or maybe, even good on the ball court, whatever it is, they have self-esteem in that. That gives them self-esteem. Right? Now, is that the only thing? Not the only thing. Right? But where does the person generally, we're way off topic here, but where does the person really want, that pat on the back, and that love? Where do they want it from? They want it from family. They want that respect. They want that, genuine love, etc. And it doesn't always come. For some people, maybe it'll never come. Maybe just all about, superficiality, all about being put down, you change a totally different lifestyle, this, that. Okay. Right? And then you feel you have nothing in common, which is probably part of the course. So in the end, it's hard to relate. And it's certainly hard to respect, in my Boston accent coming out, it's hard to respect someone who doesn't respect you. It's a hard thing. Someone's going to say, but it's even harder when all they do is they put you down. You're right. That no one's going to disagree. So a person has to find self-esteem in other places. And they can't believe what they're telling them. What? You're never good at anything? You never did anything right? You're given money to go to the store. You go to the store, you bring everything back. You didn't do that right? You didn't do anything right? We won't go with, Charlie Brown and Snoopy and all that. A person is destined always to be wrong, always to be bad. I don't think that's the case. There's a lot of good that people do. But what's the problem? People that supposedly, love us just put us down. And they just knock us around. So a person's self-esteem gets shot, which again, is definitely understandable until we just say, I don't have to take this. I don't do everything wrong. you got a problem. All you do is put me down. All you do. So what's the person going to do? They're going to act it out. They're going to do exactly what they say. You always do this, so they're going to do it. They're going to act in such a way. I forget what you call that in English. They're acting the way someone else is telling them. You're always like this. So that's what they do. What do you call it? Self-actualization? I don't know. I forget what it's called. Something like that. Whatever it is. Now, again, if someone never did anything good in their life and they weren't good at anything, they're constantly being put down, I understand. And it's going to be a hard thing to fight against. But nobody does everything wrong. Nobody. So it could be you're going to say, person never got praised. So the self-esteem is like negative. It's like negative. Right? So thank God in my own life, I had other things I was good at. Maybe I took things, too personally. Other things there are a lot of things. But, a person also has to realize, just because the person has parents doesn't mean they're necessarily good parents either. And that, and there are a lot of self-help books out there because a lot of things have been lost. One of them, Proper Way to Parent. I don't know how people listen to Dr. Spock, whatever, if his stuff is good or not good. I'm not here to judge one way or another. But how many parents that we know, meaning our parents or grandparents or whatever, there's such a thing as parenting courses. I don't think parenting courses in the secular world exactly exist. You're going to say, what about Dr. Spock and how many people listen to him? But in communities around the world, are there courses for parents in parenting? You're going to say, well, maybe there are. I could be totally wrong here. That I don't think there are too many. I don't think there are too many. Now, there happen to be, certainly in the Jewish world, happen to be a lot of good books on parenting. Now, you're going to ask, why they have to write books on parenting? Well, parenting is a lot different than it used to be. Well, that's for sure. And where should a person have learned the greatest level of how to parent? From their own parents. But parents, parents are, not infallible. And they can discipline when they shouldn't. They can get angry, different things. So the famous story of Akiva Tatz should be well. Asked for Simcha Wasserman. Simcha Wasserman, I think, was a cousin. I think they're related. And Rav Simcha Wasserman was an expert in child rearing. And people from all over the world asked him questions, about raising their kids. But Simcha Wasserman never had children. Right? So it's kind of an anomaly. How can it be someone who doesn't have children? How can they give advice? Right? How can they give advice to others if they themselves don't have children? Right? So Rabbi Akiva Tatz asked him this question. And he told him, Rav Simcha Wasserman told him, of blessed memory, he said, because I learned everything about parenting from my parents. I learned it from my own parents. Now today, something's been lost. That wouldn't be something you necessarily have to teach. That a person would actually have to take classes and read, books about parenting. Why has it been lost? Because something the previous generation got lost. Got lost. So today, there's more of a need. Every generation has their evil inclination. Generation before, early 1900s, what was the evil inclination? Why were Jews going off left and right? It do with socialism, communism, democracy, the boons. So parents, so people came to America, had difficulty making ends meet. They gave up Shabbos, gave up observance, let their kids intermingle with non-Jews, all these things, and the values got skewed. And now, parents afraid to say anything. Right? So in this generation, parent disciplines, kid called the police, said, hey, parents locked me up in my room. for an hour, put them in jail. Don't think these things don't happen. People are afraid to parent, even the Orthodox community. You have to have limits, you have to have boundaries. But a kid could say, listen, to despite you, I'm going to go off. Well, okay, they can do what they want. That's their choice. If you don't give me my way, X, Y, and Z, well, who's in control over here? People are afraid to discipline too hard. People are afraid to be too soft. It's not an easy thing. Parenting's not an easy thing, especially today. So, we have to remember. People don't have easy lives. Nobody has easy lives. And we have to know that even if people said things that are wrong, and I know of a story, somebody, that their downward spiral in the Orthodox world, they get embarrassed by the head of the yeshiva. And that was like the beginning of the end. So that person's going to have to answer why they embarrassed him in public. I'm not saying that's the only thing, but that was one of them. It's the main catalyst. So someone's got the power to influence. And where should the kids get most of their values? Doesn't matter if they're in school most of the day. Where should they get most of their values? From home. That's where they get it from. So we have to be exemplary role models. And it's not easy. We may say things we shouldn't say. We may do things we shouldn't say. And kids grow up, they understand. They understand better. Doesn't mean necessarily damage hasn't been done. Right? In today's generation, as we mentioned, self-esteem is a major issue. It's a major issue. But when it comes back to our topic here, when it comes to reaching potential, we could easily say this happened, that happened, the other thing happened. We could easily blame it how we grew up. What our parents did, what our siblings did. And a person can say, well, because of this is what happened. Well, it's not so simple. That's not so simple. And the reason is because the person's put in certain situations that we're not in control of. The question is how we react. So when you're younger, it's a lot worse. Because there are things we don't understand when we're younger. And, like I always say, when I got to yeshiva, when I finally got to yeshiva, when I was 20, what I was learning not only made so much sense, it answered up so many questions. Can't even tell you how many questions I answered up. And then my next thought is, well, why did it take me this long? Why did I find out earlier? Why didn't I find out any earlier? Well, the answer is, because if I would have wanted it earlier, I would have found out. But since it took me longer, so I found out later. But it did answer a lot. Tremendous amount. Now, you're going to say, okay, hindsight's 2020. So now you know this information. You're right. Now that I have this information, it made things a lot easier to deal with. I had good people to speak to, vent some things out, get some other answers, different things. It made life a lot easier. Things that might have been an issue many, many years ago, not even an issue today. Not even the blink of an eyelash. Not even going to flinch. Because I may say something, but not going to have, any real effect. But back then, it was like, oh, world's coming to an end. What's this? What's that? But once I got other information, it's like dominoes. Everything fit. Every last thing fit over here. Made perfect sense. We're going to say, what about the damage that was done? What about other things that happened? You're right. It's hard to go through. A lot of things in life, hard to go through. So the first thing is we have to understand that there are a lot of things we're not in control of. That's the first thing. Second of all, people can be cruel. If they don't have Torah, they can be cruel. They can say things. They say, oh, why are you so sensitive? I had someone made a nasty comment to me over the phone. I called them on it. I said, I never said that. They denied it. Totally denied. I said, either my hearing's gone or you're senile. I just heard you say error. I didn't say that. They denied it. Really well below the bell comment. So you got people who lie. You got people who say things that probably should never be said. And their excuse, you're going to get upset. Their excuse is why you're so sensitive. Because what you said is wrong. I'm going to call you on it. Because you're an idiot for saying such a thing. So I would say a lot of times it's a waste of time. But, the most important thing is to understand where it comes from. And a person can feel threatened. Certainly a secular Jew can feel threatened because the way you live your life, you're telling them what they're doing is wrong. No one wants to hear that. No one wants to see that. So what's their defense mechanism? They'll say things, they'll act in a certain way. That's their defense mechanism. So the first thing is understand what I need to do, what my obligations are, what direction I'm supposed to be going. Once I understand that and I see the bigger picture, then I can understand other things that happen. Now again, why would God put you in a situation, toxic situation? Obviously, he knows what he's doing. Obviously, it's to help us grow, to become who we are. Because someone's been in such a situation, doesn't that help them deal with others also in the same situation? Or give strength to others gone through similar things? But you can say they get hurt along the way, okay? Life is no picnic. Right? Not supposed to be. But what does a person get from what happened to them? Pain? Could be. Person go through a lot of pain. Question is what they do with it. How they use it. Do they use it just to feel bad about themselves? Because everyone else said a million things against them? And just use it as an excuse? Some people will. Other people just wallow in self-pity. They never get out of it. God forbid. These are not easy things. But a Torah perspective, I think, I'm not saying it's the only thing that a person needs. A person may need heavy therapy over here, right? But Torah can change our perspective. And when it changes our perspective, what do? We feel sorry for these people. Should feel sorry for these people. Again, it doesn't matter if they're parents, siblings. It doesn't matter really what they've done in general. They're just bad people. They didn't know. They didn't know. And if you tell me they did know, so what? So what? So they did terrible things. Question is how we react. How we deal with it. Some people, they may never get over it. But there's a question here. Right? There's a question over here. And the question is, how are we going to look at things? That's the question. And a person can stay down for a long time. It could be a long time. But I think part of the process of recovery is understanding how the world works. How God runs the world. What our obligation is. Right? So here, God, what did we say before? This is how we got onto all this. God gives everyone the ability to reach potential. What are you going to say? It might be hard. It might be a lot of difficulties along the way. That's true. But knowledge is power. Right? Knowing what's going on is crucial in order to be healed. Once I understand what's going on, again, I'm not going to say it's easy. But once a person understands what's going on, then whatever a person says should never hurt them. Because they understand where it comes from. They understand what's happening. But you're going to say it's family, it's different things, they're getting under my skin. They're treading on everything I hold to be holy. Okay? That may be true. We may hot under the collar and they don't know anything and they want us to respect them, even if they don't respect us. That's all true. That is all true. But you know what? So what? Let them talk. As we mentioned before, someone has a 25 IQ. I'm not taking them seriously. I don't care what they say. I don't care what kind of degrees they have. I'm not taking them seriously. They shouldn't be taken seriously. They want to make a stupid comment. Let them talk. You're going to say, well, I don't need to hear that. Fine, don't talk to them. Who says you have an obligation to talk to them? But they're family. Family's an albatross. Can be an albatross. So what? Blood is thicker than water. So what? I need another hole in my head? What do I need another hole in my head? What do I need more aggravation? So they talk, big deal. Talk is cheap. So over here, we spoke in different aspects about potential and how we can't rest on our laurels. So then my Rebbe says, okay, if that's true, why is the person ever going to be conceited? Why should the person over here ever be conceited? Because however much Torah they learn, wherever that strength is a blessing. It's a blessing from heaven. God gave you intellect. Something we pray for. Something Jews pray for 3 times a day. God should give us understanding. Means spiritual understanding. God gives us the ability to tap in. Tap into his world. So if it's a blessing from heaven, God's given us the ability to what? To reach our potential. That's what he's doing. He's giving us that ability. The question is what we do with it. We can ignore it. We can never want any part of it. Right? Or we can realize, I got a lot to learn in this world. We can realize that, yeah, person learned, and they might have learned a lot. They might have learned a lot. Why taking credit for yourself? Why thinking, look at how much I learned? Isn't that what you're created to do? That's what you're supposed to be doing. So it's about reaching potential. And a person's working hard day in and day out. How in the world can they be conceited here? God's giving them a golden opportunity. And that opportunity is to tap in. That's the opportunity to tap into Torah. Tap into mitzvah. That's what he should be doing. That's the obligation. Jew or non-Jew. Non-Jew also has to tap in. Right? But tap into what God wants from them, which isn't the same as a Jew. You know, if someone's a JIT, a Jew in training, okay, there are plenty of things they can do like a Jew. Shabbos, Yom Tov, festivals, problem. They can't keep it like a Jew until after they're Jewish. So they have to keep it, but they have to do something on purpose to break it. They have to show they're not doing it like a Jew. So Jews and non-Jews have potential, whatever that potential is. So we should be whistling Dixie doing the moonwalk. I don't know how to do either. And we should say, look what God's given us over here. Look at the knowledge. Look at the knowledge God's granted us. God's helped us with. So that are going to be conceited. That are going to say, look how much I know. Is it a quarter of what you should know? No. Is it a tenth of what you should know? No. Right? I have plenty what to learn day in and day out. So if that's what I'm commanded to do, where's the haughtiness? Where's the conceitedness? Over here. The ability to learn and want to do the right thing is a strength. It's a blessing God gives. So if that gives me the opportunity, where's the ability to be conceited over here? Why should I think I'm God's gift to the world? He's giving me the ability. He's giving me the strength. I have to put my best foot forward. As Avos said, I have to work hard. It's a blessing from heaven. All this goes together. And that's what helps the person reach potential. Whatever we're supposed to do, at whatever level. So where is room for conceitedness over here? Shouldn't be. Should disappear. Person has to show an Evos. Has to show humility. And think I have so much more to grow. I have so much more to learn. But a person's going to say, hey, look at me. All three of us. Me, myself, and I. Look at all the great things I've done. What great things have you done that you're not obligated to do? But look how much more I know more than anyone else. Yeah, compared to someone else, you don't know very much. Compared to them, fine, you might be the Torah giant of the generation. Well, these people don't know anything, so why being conceited? The more you know, the more we uncover, the less we understand. We only scratch at the surface. Science itself, big time scientists, what have they uncovered? Puny amounts. Very, very small amounts. Certainly about the universe. Million things they don't know. There is stuff they do know. Fine. But there's plenty they don't know. Right? And, science took a major hit the last couple years. Without going into everything about Corona. But Corona made them look really silly. Extremely silly. One microbe does, shuts down the whole world. No one knows what to do. Then you get different waves. A lot of people, get the vaccine, whatever you want to say about the vaccine, and numbers spike. How can that be? Science is not going to have such a good answer. But if you got majority of people that say different strains, different this, maybe, vaccine only lasts 6 months, whatever, but the immune system's weaker, whatever it is. Well, the more people I would think that take the vaccine, whatever you want to say, shouldn't it have a positive effect? And that the numbers should go way down? But the numbers kept going up and down, like a yo-yo. Right? They dropped a lot for a while, and then they went spiked up again. Right? Made them look pretty silly. So there's a lot we don't know. Plenty what we don't know. In Torah, as we mentioned at the beginning, is as wide as the sea, is as long as the earth. So a person should think, look at all I'm learning, look how much I'm learning, look at the depth. Okay, that might be very good. Gotta pat ourselves on the back for that. But does that mean we're doing, what we're supposed to do? That's our obligation. But if that's our obligation, I'm not patting myself on the back here. Because there are multiple levels here. Multiple levels. Right? If there are multiple levels, and I'm only maximizing a little bit, how can someone be conceited? Seems like an impossibility. Because we mentioned here, their strength, where does it come from? The strength comes from God himself. God himself gives us that ability. He gives us that ability. So if he gives us that ability, where's the conceitedness? He's helping us reach our potential. The Gemara in Yuma says, we mentioned many times, you want to go in the right direction? God will help you. You want to go in the wrong direction? God does not stop you. So if we want to go in the right direction, fine. God is helping us. So if God is helping us and I'm going in the right direction, where's the conceitedness? Why should there be? I'm doing exactly what I should be doing. There's no reason to be conceited over here. Because that's what I'm created to do. A person's going to think, oh, look, clean my house, clean this, clean that. Passover, sat down the Seder, did everything I should have, stayed up most of the night and learned. Person's going to say, wow, I feel so great. Look what I did over here. What's God going to say? I told you. Shut up and eat the matzah. That's your obligation. That's what you got to do. And you think I did this, I did that, did the other thing, and I'm going to get pat in the back? God says, come on. This is what I told you to do. It's an absolute chutzpah over here. God's giving you all this help and say, look, I did it myself. Right? The Torah says, the book of Deuteronomy. The strength of my hand, I did this. What do you mean you did this? You got to put your best foot forward. But don't take God out of the picture. He's giving you this help. We say in the Shemona Esrei, the fourth paragraph, the time of meditation, whatever you want to call it. God gave us the ability to what? What do we pray for? He should give us knowledge. Grant us knowledge. Now, what's the language of God should grant us. Grant us knowledge. It doesn't say no tame. It doesn't say to give. That God should give us knowledge. It's an act of chesed. It's an act of loving kindness. God doesn't have to give us knowledge, spiritual knowledge. Now, does it mean if I don't have knowledge, I'm a fool? I'm stupid over here? No. A person could have a PhD, could have an MA, an MBA, whatever. Doesn't mean they're stupid in that sense. What they might be stupid in is spiritual knowledge. And that God has to grant us. It's a chesed. Spiritual knowledge doesn't come just because a person's intelligent. That spiritual knowledge you got to work on. You have to absorb it. And if you don't absorb it, you're not going to get it. It cannot be something where, a person's going to say by osmosis, it's going to come to me. Because Torah is hard to learn. 80% doesn't make sense. So God's not going to give you that knowledge. It's not about giving knowledge. Because you got to be a vessel to be able to accept it. But God grants you. It's an act of chesed. It's an act of loving kindness. And I've seen, intelligent people. They think, oh, it's going to come by nothing. What do you mean? You got to work. God has to grant it. It's not about giving. It's an act of chesed. Because 90% of the Torah, 80% of the Torah doesn't make sense. Logically. Even by the laws of damages. Doesn't make logical sense, according to us. According to the normal laws of damages, we would say. So I have to work hard. Now, granting that knowledge is something God has to do. You're not going to give it. Because you got to be a vessel to take it. But you got to work hard. You got to put in the effort. That's why it says grant, not give. The person's going to say, see, I already learned that. I already learned Tanakh. I already learned the prophets. Yeah, you learned it like a 5-year-old. You want to learn it like a 5-year-old, you can learn it like a 5-year-old. You want to learn it properly, it takes time, it takes effort. You got to see what's going on behind the scenes, a lot of things. Seemingly a lot of contradictions between the prophets and the Torah. We have to learn. Or they have to have a lot of fear of heaven. Right? But why should a person, as my Rebbe here says, why should they be conceited if their strengths are a blessing from heaven? Not based on me, it's based on what God gave me. And that helps us reach potential. So if God's helping me reach potential, why am I with my big mouth saying how great I am? Goes against everything that we said over here. God's granting it to us. Does he have to? No. But if he doesn't grant it to us, we're not going to have it. We're not going to fathom it. And a person's going to have 150 IQ, it's not going to go in. Because there's just a lot of things that don't make sense, that don't add up, that we have to look into in other ways. We have to understand the logic of what the Torah says. Not what I think. Not what I think over here. So God gives that ability to every person to reach potential. But we have to want it. We have to desire it. We have to be consistent. King Solomon says in Proverbs, we have to want Torah like you'd want rubies, diamonds, emeralds, gold, silver. I said many years ago, Bill Gates was at the top. I said, he worked 15, 16 hours a day to stay on top. If we would do that in Torah, not for money, imagine what we'd be. You can say, come on, how can a person learn 16 hours? Forget the technicalities. If we would treat Torah like a business, and that's the blessing we make every day. The blessing over Torah is la'asok b'divrei Torah. What is it? Why not lilmod Torah? Why not learn Torah? That would be the blessing. Why do we say la'asok? It's like an esek. It's like business. Because you got to treat Torah like business. No shortcuts. You got to work hard. You got to dig in the trenches. That's what you got to do. Right? It has to be all-encompassing. Person looks at it as all-encompassing. Their whole day, their whole life revolves around this. That's what it does. There's stories. Many stories about Rabbi Chaim Coffman, of blessed memory. Torah giant of the last generation. Things that were important for him to remember, Torah he remembered. And he knew the entire Torah. Things that weren't important to him. Phone numbers. Street names. That took away from his Torah. Because everything about him was Torah. Like I said, how can, not everyone can live that way. He did. Everything extraneous, it was just not part of his mindset. Anything takes him away from Torah, not interested in. If that's going to affect him in potentially a negative way. So we get distracted. We're not on that level. Okay. Right? We have what to strive for. But see, if we want that, let's say a person truly desired that. You got to turn over the world to try and get there. It's not an easy thing to do. Right? So we have to change our mentality. And we mentioned this many times. Our mentality is nothing's more important than Torah, whether for a Jew or a non-Jew. Nothing. I have to learn. I have to have fixed times to learn, to keep whatever I need to keep. I have to work hard, but God grants it. If you want it, it's there for the taking. God allows everyone different levels to tap in. Mentioned this last week, my class in the book of Leviticus, that my Rebbe brought down. That he said, the Torah is for everybody. Everybody can tap in. You have to know how to tap in. I'm not going to go through 2 hours where I spoke about over there. Right? But everybody has the ability to tap in if they tap in the right way. It's not exclusive. Person wants to join, they can join. Person doesn't want to join, they can stay a non-Jew, that's fine. Everyone has a portion within parameters. They have to be within specific parameters. But all these things, again, has to come from within. Person has to have that drive, right? Where are those CG graphics of the Energizer Bunny? We got to have that drive. You got to keep that drive fresh. Today's a new day. Tomorrow's a new day. God renews all of creation. We're a new body because we slept, some more than others. Right? But, that's one of the reasons the Jew has to wash their hands in the morning because their soul went up and then God gives our soul back. We're a new creation. Should be whistling Dixie every day. Should kiss the ground. I can serve God the way He needs to be served. I should kiss the ground. It gives me the ability to learn Torah at whatever level. But it gives me that ability, and that's a blessing from heaven. And you're going to be conceited and stuck up and say, look at all the knowledge. Look at all the stuff I know. And look at all someone else knows that makes you look like nothing. But that's what you're created to do in the first place. So where's the conceitedness? He gives you an opportunity, golden opportunity. Unbelievable opportunity. And we get distracted. We waste time. CFL, right? We waste time. All kinds of things. And the evil inclination is having a field day. He's having a field day. He's going to say, God, you made my job too easy. All I do is I have a little phone. They can tap into whatever they want. No one has to see them. They don't have to, they don't have to go to certain places. Tremendous. Takes a person away from what they're supposed to be doing. King David says, as we mentioned before, we're here for 70 years. If we have strength, we're here 80 years. Everything over that's a blessing. We don't have much time. If we don't have much time, we got to maximize the time we're here and what we're using our brains for. We don't want the brains to atrophy, right? Still got these things they've created for years. God forbid you should be alone watching something on TV. You got the couch potato right next to you. You and him, buddies. See that? He missed the tag, right? All these things. All these things. We have to remember. We need to reach potential. We don't know what that potential is. We're growing, or God forbid, going the other way on a daily basis, right? So we have to know how to use time. Now, there are times we can't learn. You got to spend time with family, whatever. We're going to help out in the house. Different things we have to do, fine. We have to be consistent in what we do. If we're not consistent in what we do, evil inclination is going to have a field day. Sometimes you're like this, sometimes you're like that. You're jumping all over the place. Person doesn't have equilibrium. And then we lose focus, right? Person will say, how do we not lose focus? How do we stay in the straight and narrow path? Well, that's easy. I'll give you three ways. It's called Torah, Torah, and Torah. That's it. We have to tap in. That's what we have to do. We have to tap in on a regular basis. Right? If we don't tap in on a regular basis, what's going to happen? We're in trouble. We're 100% in trouble. All the evil inclination needs that we get a little bit distracted. You're not going to come and say, I want you to desecrate Shabbos. I want you to worship idols. What is he going to do? He's going to make a little bit hole in your armor. And that hole eventually is going to get bigger and bigger until you do X, Y, and Z. So, when a person's guard is down, so the evil inclination comes in. That's what it does. And then just sits there. It sits there until a person is under stress, different things, and then a person opens up a little bit more. And it opens up a little bit more until eventually it gets open so wide. It gets open so wide that he becomes the owner. He's the one in charge. Right? And today, a lot of things going on in the world. A lot of things going on in our own personal lives. To stay on that straight and narrow path day in and day out, not going to be easy. Because the evil inclination doesn't rest. So as we say, a little bit of Torah pushes away a lot of darkness. That's what it does. But I have to be consistent. Person will say, well, this is extremism 101 or 101A. You're right. 100%. But this is what we have to do. If we don't go to the opposite end of the spectrum, the Rambam says you got to take the middle path, what we have to do is we have to work extremely hard. Day in and day out, we have to work hard. And there are a million things we have to work on. So what am I supposed to change? Everything. Can't change everything. Very hard to change everything. We have to change bad habits. Bad habits are hard to change. Because once we've done something once, twice, 3 times, becomes the owner. Very hard to fight. Becomes part of our psyche. So you're going to say, but I already know that. Okay. So even if a person knows it, so you gotta go out there and you gotta get rid of it. You gotta work on these things. You're gonna say, but it's so hard, even to change one character trait. Okay. I'm not gonna deny that. Does it mean I just give up? Or does it mean I dig in the trenches and I work hard? You gotta work hard. That's what life is. Life is a constant battle. It's a constant struggle. I have to work hard. We say that when we, Passover, we get rid of any chametz, any leavened product, any crumb, anywhere that we need to check, where we know there's been food there. What does that represent? Chametz represents evil inclination. So when we're cleaning ourselves as well. I mean, we get carried away, I think a little bit, when we do clean, but cleaning is always good. We have to clean ourselves. We have to re-squeegee the brain. Right? I'm going to patent that. Anyone who uses it, I'll sue you. Right? We got to re-squeegee the brain. We got to rethink and re-understand how God runs the world, what our job is. And we have to, then we have to put that into motion. So you got to tell me, come on, don't you always speak about the heart, the head disconnect? The head knows what to do, the heart goes a different direction. True? The hardest part in this cream puff generation is knowing what to do. That, I think, is the hardest part. Now, once you know what to do, that's a whole different ballgame. Now I got to roll up my sleeves, and now I got to get to work. Because I've been doing this wrong for however many years. And I've gone in the wrong direction however many years. Yeah, we do things by rote. We do things because that's what I did yesterday. We have bad habits that don't allow us to change. We have different addictions, different things, whatever they may be. You're going to say, Rabbi, come on, life is a mess. Okay, I agree. So what? We all have our own messes to clean up. So it's not worth it to clean up. It's not worth it to work on bad character traits, be better people. Got a lot to work on. A lot to work on. But a person has to realize we are a work in progress. And we can't be lazy. We can't say, well, look what I did over here. God's going to pat me on the back. And God's going to say, what are you talking about? I told you have to stuff your face with matzah. That's what I told you to do. Why do you think you're any better? Because, you did it, or maybe you did it better than some other people. Okay. Right? We're created to do what God wants us to do. The strengths that we're given are a blessing. They help us reach potential. If they help us reach potential, why am I thinking I'm so great? Potential is something fleeting. We don't know what it is. We don't know where we're supposed to be. What our end potential is. So I would say like this. So even if that is the case, how in the world can you rest on your laurels? You don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. You don't know where we're headed. You don't know what you could be doing. Right? And someone can say, I'm not, God doesn't expect anything from me. It's not true. Because the Mishnah in Sanhedrin says, "Bishvili nivra olam." For me, the world is created. For me, not for you, right? Meaning everyone is their own world. Rabbi once was late, learning with the Brisker of a blessed memory, Yisrael Zev Soloveitchik, one of the Torah giants of the last generation. And then Brisker asked him, "Why were you late?" And Rabbi said, "Oh, I got caught up. There was a, stama levaya, whatever. A person died, so there's a funeral procession." Brisker Rav reprimanded him, and he said, "Stama levaya, right? It's only a Jew died. Yeah, it's only a funeral. Don't you understand? Every person is their own world, their own entity. They have the ability to change worlds. At least Jews, not necessarily by non-Jews, but that's not the topic for now. They have the ability to change worlds. And you're telling me it's just an ordinary Jew? You know what that ordinary Jew is? You know what he represents? He hammered him. Because there's no such thing. It's just, a Jew died. That's no such thing. Every Jew is their own world, their own potential. You can't just say, it's just a general thing. We got hammered. Hammered. Right? But that's the right outlook. Because we all have potential. And nobody knows what their potential is. Problem is, as we mentioned before, and we hammered this point home, and that is that we don't believe in ourselves. We beat ourselves down worse than anyone else can. We just think, come on, what does the evil inclination do? It says, come on, you just did this. You think God's really going to forgive you? You think God's going to help you? And you're going to do this tomorrow, and you're going to do this the next day. So we beat ourselves up and say, what's the point? I'm going to fail. I'm a walking failure. But you also do things right. There are many things a person does right. Does it mean we're perfect? No. Doesn't mean we're perfect. What it means is we got to work hard. We have to fix ourselves up. We cannot take anything for granted. That we learned from King Solomon. Right? Today's a different day. But we don't know what today's going to bring. We don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. But the Torah mitzvahs that we have are going to help us in how we're going to react to whatever happens. That's what it's going to do. But I have to strengthen it. I have to work hard at it. The Mesilas Yesharim Path of the Just says that, yeah, you're right. We have to work on bad character traits. We have to fix up bad character traits. But he says, you know what? And this is a novelty. Because he says you also have to work and strengthen good character traits. Now, if it's something I'm good at, why does he say you have to strengthen it? I'm good at it. Now, is he really worried it's going to atrophy and be bad? Maybe. But he says even something good needs to be strengthened. Make it even stronger. Right? So it has a much more positive effect. But when I saw that, I would have thought just the opposite. Something that you're good at is strengthened. I don't need to work on that. Something that I'm bad at, that you have to work on. That I would hear. That to me would make a little more sense. But to say I'm going to work on my strengths, yeah, you also have to do that. Your strengths also need to be much stronger. Because it could be something that happens that's negative could take down something positive also. So that also has to be strength. But I wouldn't have thought that. What's weak has to be strengthened. That I get. That we have to work on. And there are many things we have to work on. Now, a person can be overwhelmed and say, how can I do this? How can I work on this? How can I work on that? It's hard. I didn't say it was easy. To change one character trait is hard. I'd also agree. So what should I do? I should give up? See, people today don't want to work so hard. We're lazy. What do we say? When the going gets tough, the tough get going. Life can throw us a lot of curves. But it makes us who we are. Right? Now we spoke about. So a person got to be careful over here. Extremely careful. Because we have to remember, where do our strengths come from? I have to put my best foot forward. But see, God grants us things. One of them being knowledge. And if God touches our soul and allows us to come back and to learn, the golden opportunity, but it came from Him. And we were a vessel to take it. Very good. Well, we got a long way to go. We all have a long way to go. So a person in general can never, ever, ever rest on laurels. Can't do that. That's an impossibility. And a person can't say, well, I did this, I did that. Look, people should, as we've seen, or we're going to see, people have to run away from honor. Because a little bit of honor, a person gets, potentially can become conceited. And when that happens, we mentioned before, the Orchot Tzadikim, the ways of the righteous, at the beginning of the gate of being conceited, says all bad character traits stem from being conceited. Now, that doesn't mean you don't have to have self-esteem. Self-esteem is crucial, we mentioned. Spoke a lot about that. You have to have a certain level of self-esteem. At the same time, we have to show humility. We have to realize what I do isn't what I should be doing. Not to that level. It means I got a heck of a lot to work out. But God's giving you the strength. He's giving you that ability. And you're going to say, look at me. Look at everything I've done. It's all about me. He's giving you everything. Right? Power my hands. I did everything. You're taking out the big X factor. You're taking out God Himself. So says Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, you studied a lot of Torah. God granted you wisdom. Granted. He didn't give it to you. Granted. Gave it to you like a gift that you don't deserve. And now you're going to tell the world, look at me. And look at how much I know, or how much I think I know. Knowledge is a dangerous thing. It's a dangerous thing because there are people with a little bit of knowledge that think they know a heck of a lot more than they do. And that does not breed humility. Yeah, I see quote unquote non-Jews giving stuff over about Kabbalah. Come on. You can't walk before you learn how to crawl. You can't study calculus if you don't know trigonometry or algebra. A little bit of knowledge is a dangerous thing because you don't know spit or what you should know. My language. Right? You think you know a heck of a lot more than you do. And humility gonna go out the wayside here. And the reason is because the person's conceited here. And they think it's all about them. They say, I want to share it with everybody. That's great. But the mission Pirkei Avos, one day when I'm 108, Mi'at Hashem will get there. Episode 1000. Next, whatever, however long it takes. Is that you have to know your place. You have to know your place. And there are people out there, unfortunately, and I'm sure Dan knows a number of them, and other people may know some of them. They don't know their place. They have what we call diarrhea of the mouth. They yap, 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 and they don't know diddly squat about what they're yapping about. It's also a problem. Give someone a little bit of knowledge, they go haywire. They go haywire. So it's good. They want to give over some of that knowledge. But we said before, anyone who wants to come learn Torah, Jew or non-Jew, they're welcome to learn. It has to be within certain parameters. If it's not within certain parameters, it's not learning anymore. It's not Torah anymore. Doesn't matter what it looks like, what it smells like. It's not Torah. Because it's Torah made up in your own mind. It's doing things the way you want. Oh, I don't need to listen to the rabbis, even though the Torah says I have to listen to the Kohanim, right? And the Levites in every generation, right? Chapter 17, Book of Deuteronomy, verses 9 to 11, 12. Speak about it over there. I'm going to listen to God. Good luck. I hope God gives you the answer. But we live in this world. Our legs are firmly planted in this world. You got to get the knowledge from people who have the knowledge. It's not made up in your own mind. And if people know and they give over things that just aren't true or misquoted, people look stupid. They look foolish. Seen that also. People say certain things and just off, just wrong. Misquoted, other things, it's wrong. These people have to be called out. It's not Lashon Hara. Because of distorting Torah. Can't distort Torah. But if it's given as a blessing, God grants it. Grants to you knowledge. We say this every day. 3 times a day. God grants knowledge. If he grants you knowledge, which he doesn't have to, but he gives you the ability and the understanding to understand what the Torah says. So how can it be? How can it be you're taking credit for yourself? He's giving it to you on a silver platter. Moshe Rabbeinu, Torah was hard for him. God gave it to him. No questions asked. Gave it to him. Very hard for him. So what's it going to say about us? We're a million times on a much lower level. So we have the ability to understand things. Why? Because it's only because he gave it to us. And we shouldn't think, oh, we're so great. Look what I've done. What have you done over here? Compared to the previous generations, we're not even an ant. We're not even the crust of a person's toenail. We're a previous generation. So for this cream puff generation, very good. Sit there and brag. Say, look what I know, and this person doesn't know, and this and that. Yeah, compared to other people, even in this generation and previous generations, you're nothing. You're zero. Doesn't mean you don't have to have self-esteem. Self-esteem is crucial. But you have to put it in perspective. So, potential, you think we're going to, reach the potential of the Vilna Gaon? No. Rashi? No. Got our own potential, whatever it is. Cannot ever rest on our laurels. That we can't do. Can't take anything for granted. There are a lot of things we take for granted. Health being one of them. Livelihood being another. A lot of things we take for granted. Knowledge of Torah is something we should never take for granted. Because knowledge of Torah takes a lot to acquire. Takes a lot of effort. Takes a lot of mysterious nefesh, a lot of self-sacrifice. So, as my Rebbe mentioned, and we're going to see, everybody has the potential to take from Torah and to learn. But you have to do it the right way. It's not just intellectual stimulation. It's not just to be a frummer student, an ultra-Orthodox student, as Rav Moshe Schneider, my Rebbe's Rebbe, would say. It's not just another what's it called? Another academic subject. Torah's all encompassing. Torah has to be all in. And if I'm half in, I come out half baked. And God forbid, person's kids will come out half baked. That's what happens. You're going to say, how can you say it's all or nothing? Well, let's see what the end result is. Let's go according to statistics. What do statistics show? If you're all in, you have the ability to create and bring about rabbinic scholars. If you're not all in, you're not going to produce many rabbinic scholars. You're just not. I'm not going to say how the groups don't have rabbinic scholars, but they're not going to produce the same. Give an example. A number of years ago, the chief rabbinate here in Israel appointed 22 rabbinic court judges. 15 out of 22 came from the ultra-Orthodox camp. Now you're going to say, come on, favoritism, this, that. You know, be a rabbinic court judge, you have to know quite a bit. 15 out of 22, anyone do the math, 58%. 58%. So why is it coming from that camp? Because the emphasis in that camp is all about being a Torah scholar. That's what it's all about. In the other camps, I'm not going to say Torah is not important. Also important to be an accountant. Also important to be a doctor, be a lawyer, be other things. But have someone, a parent, in the modern Orthodox community. Yeah, then what would you rather have your son be? A rabbi or an accountant or a lawyer or a doctor? Vast majority, I'm not going to say everybody, vast majority going to say doctor, lawyer. Because that's what's important to them. That's what's important. Being a judge of of deciding Jewish law? No. Not a good occupation. That's a difference. I mean, there are other differences also, but that's the difference. Where we're saying that you have 2 feet in the secular world, quarter foot in the religious world. So what's going to happen? You're not going to produce scholars. I'm not going to say you don't have any, but you're not going to produce as many. Because if the most important thing is, I'm learning, right? And you're learning as much as you can learn to be the best you can be. I get it. Right? Makes perfect sense. Because that's the most important thing over here. But if you're going to start out and your goal is to be half-baked, you will be half-baked. And that's the bottom line. That's the end result. I'm not going to say everybody this, that, but statistics don't lie. In general. And I've been in both worlds. So I know both worlds. And I've seen what works and what doesn't work. Now, people can argue, say in the modern Orthodox world, it's not always like that. They're very strong people in the modern Orthodox world. True. I'm not going to say not. That's true. And they may be even stronger in learning than people, some people in the ultra-Orthodox world. Fine. But where are the vast majority of Torah scholars coming from? And that's one of the main reasons I left the other world. I left the modern Orthodox world. For that reason. Because the majority of Torah scholars are not coming from there. Now you got to ask yourself the question. The $1.5 million question. Why is that? And the reason is because Torah scholarship is not the most important thing. That's just the bottom line. It's not the most important thing. Can also be, a religious Jew and be a lawyer. True? No one's saying not. It can be an actuary. It can be an accountant. It can be other things. Also true. Also very true. They're not equal. They're not equal. Because the most important thing, bottom line, what's upholding the world? Torah. That's the most important thing. Nothing to talk about. Nothing to talk about. This is just as, you'll get me a second class. Okay, if a person, has to work, that's fine. Not everyone we mentioned. Not everyone can be a rabbinic scholar. Not everyone can sit and learn for X amount of years. That's true. But you have to see if a person has the potential. That's what we spoke about. If a person has that potential, the other side's going to say, he's already learned enough at 18. Let him go to college. Let him go to university. That means they're not going to produce. I'm not going to say they don't have any. They're just not going to produce as many. They're just not. Because that's not the main focus. That's totally not the main focus. So, there's a lot more to say, about this. So, next Saturday night, interesting, it's going to be right after Passover. So, I don't see why there shouldn't be a part 4 Saturday night. There is one announcement. I was going to tease it, but I guess I'm not going to bother. And the announcement is the next coming weeks pretty much after Passover, I'm going to have a new platform. That new platform is called TikTok. Rabbi Chaim Coffman is going to be on TikTok. What it's going to look like, how it's going to manifest itself, we're going to leave that open. But there are going to be a number of short videos, a lot of videos going on, short, like answer the questions, other things, and, we're going to try and make a big splash. We're going to try and make a big splash on TikTok. That's the goal in the next coming weeks. But make no mistake. Make no mistake over here. Potential is a huge thing. It's a huge thing. It's one of the things that drove me more than anything else. First of all, I had money because I could sit and learn, for however many years. But it's one thing that, and I told this story in the Tziv many, many years ago. Remember who first told me the story? And that made an impression. Made a very serious impression. That is whatever my potential is, whatever it's going to be. I don't want to hear after 120 years, look what you did over here. Look what you could have been, and look what you could have done. You don't want to hear that. I mean, that's going to be part of, what hell is, of what that potential could have been. You hear that, you watch that second movie. But at the end of the day, we don't want to hear this. You'd rather hear it now than hear it later, because if you blew your potential later, you're hearing it later, say, oh, you could have done this, you could have done that. Let's play the video, and you see how the matrix works, and it goes in different directions. You're going to be going out of your mind. However that looks in the next world, you're going to be absolutely going nuts. So better hear it, over here, than have to hear it much greater detail later and be thrown to the wolves about all the stupidity that you did, and all the waste of time and all that. So we may have to answer for that as well, right? But if we understand what potentially it can do in such a negative way, we don't want it. We want to stay away from it. We want to be absolute fanatics, go away from it like the plague, and whatever it is, we want to reach that potential, whatever that is. So next week, chapter 2, Mishna 9, unless, for some reason at the end of the week, I say we're not going to do it, but I don't see any reason not to. So, next week, Ethics of Our Fathers, Pirkei Avos, chapter 2, Mishna 9, part 4. Now, is there going to be a part 5? I don't know. There's still what to talk about here. But we're definitely going to have next week part 4.
Wow. Well, that's exciting to know, Rabbi. You may be my only broadcast on the weekend, so that's good to hear. So exciting. I love how you said we are a work in progress, and I wish that everybody would just grasp that. Don't beat themselves up, and don't misplace where you are. You are a work in progress, and
But the question is, how long can you use that as an excuse? You can't use it over, we said you can say that over your whole life. right? But you can't stay at the same place and say, well, what can I do? I'm a work in progress. And this is 5 years down the line. And you're still doing the same thing you were doing 5 years before. That's not a work in progress. That's being stagnant. There's a difference. If a person's doing, if a person's a 20-year-old, 25-year-old, and they're doing the same thing when they were 10, that's not good, right? That's not progress. That's going backwards. Right? Now, a work in progress is good, saying, okay, I have room to grow. But there might be a limit of how much a person can say that, because you can always say I'm a work in progress and do nothing. Right? So that we have to be careful of.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Rabbi. Well, I think we're going to call it quits for today. I have got to get to bed. Thank you, everybody, for checking in with us and listening to Pirkei Avos, the Ethics of the Fathers, live from Israel with Rabbi Chaim Coffman. I so appreciate it, and we wish you all a wonderful, wonderful week. So we're good for now, Rabbi?
We should be good after all that matz and wine. I should be I should be raring to go. So I don't think I have anything. I don't think I have anything planned for next Saturday night, so I don't think it should be a problem.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your patience, and thank you for sharing the Torah with us. And we wish you guys all out there a great week. And Rabbi, we hope you have a great week. Any classes you got upcoming? You got your usual sessions tomorrow?
Sunday, yeah. Tomorrow I got, even though I'll be busy cleaning, but I got my regular schedule tomorrow. Got Book of Leviticus chapter 16. 9 o'clock Eastern time, 4 o'clock Israel time, and then Tanakh talk should be 12:30 Eastern time, 7:30 Israel time, and then Noahide Nations at 9:30. At 9:30 Israel time, 2:30 Eastern time. So should be my normal schedule.
Full slate,
and
yeah.
I think most of my Q&As should be Tuesday, Thursday. Even though I have to check for chametz at night, I think that should be good. Also, most of my classes during the week should be fine. So. Yeah, so that's the plan.
Right on. Well, we wish you well with all those classes. So you've heard it right from the rabbi. He's got a full plate. We're so thankful he takes the time to share with us these lessons. So we're going to let you go. But Rabbi says we're on for part 4 next week. See you then.
Right.
Bye for now.
We're on for part 4, and look forward to seeing me at some point on TikTok in the next few weeks.
Okay, for sure. Look forward to it, Rabbi. All right. Have a great day, everybody. Bye for now.